The girl quietly begs to be released, her eyes filled with a silent question and plea for mercy. In the middle of the gloomy room, there is a sobbing girl who is hugging the lifeless body of her friend. There is a young man standing nearby. He turns around completely indifferently and slowly walks away. Through bitter tears, the girl blames the guy standing in front of her for what happened, claiming that it was his actions that pushed her friend to take the fatal step. She throws harsh words in his face, comparing everything that is happening to a cruel game, and with despair declares that her friend took her own life. In a fit of despair, the girl screams loudly at the young man, trying to find out if he is now satisfied with the results of his actions. The guy's behavior remains indifferent, his cold gaze devoid of any sympathy for those around him. Looking at the girl, he declares that the blame lies entirely with her. According to him, it was her weakness that caused them to be locked in this nightmare. He takes the girl by the chin and says that it was she who became the reason that her comrades, one after another, chose to leave life. The girl begins to cry bitterly and declares that the young man is wrong because they did nothing. When the girl finally falls into the abyss of despair, the guy turns away, abruptly cutting off the conversation, as he does not want to listen to anything else. For him, this stage is completely completed, and as it turns out, this was already the 6th cycle of his long and painful path in this world. This time he did everything he could, but he was still unable to stop the terrible end that has been haunting him for a long time. Images of giant, terrifying dragons furiously destroying everything around them come to his mind. Jay begins to think about what might have changed if he had listened to the woman back then and followed her mysterious advice. Reflecting on the past and the advice of his longtime mentor, the boy realizes that he does not feel a drop of regret for what he did earlier. Years of suffering in this hell have hardened him, turning his bad experience into the main weapon that will help him survive any battle. A powerful fiery explosion illuminates the space, and it seems that the entire world is about to be completely destroyed by the gigantic vibration. Bright lightning begins to sparkle around the young man's wrist, and soon a legendary ranked blade materializes in his hand. The guy resolutely rushes forward into the thick of the battle, where he alone confronts endless hordes of terrible and bloodthirsty monsters. The failures of past battles and the experience gained in them remain his only weapon in this endless war. He fearlessly rushes forward and raises his bright, glowing blade to strike. A moment later, with sharp blows, he cuts the huge dragon into pieces. However, immediately in place of the dead monster, another bloodthirsty monster appears in its place, thirsting for immediate reprisal against the warrior. The young man doesn't let up on the pressure and continues to furiously attack the monsters, ignoring the fatigue in his trained body. He moves forward fearlessly, and again delivers devastating blows with his magical blade, cutting a path through the dense ranks of enemies. A moment later he stops, looks around the ruined city, and realizes that the calm is only a temporary illusion. The boy hears a terrible noise slowly reaching him, and understands that nothing is over yet in this bloody and grueling battle. No matter how many creatures he slays, their ranks are instantly replenished with new monsters that come from the dark depths of this cursed place. In the midst of this hopeless carnage, a system notification window appears before Jay, alerting him to the arrival of a new phase of the planet's destruction. Planet Earth has acquired the status of an anomalous apocalypse. He failed to save the Earth, the mysterious clock was activated, and the world's time is moving backwards again. The young man hopes that all these titanic efforts were not in vain. Time is rushing back and the world is once again being rebooted. He closes his eyes and sighs very heavily, mentally preparing himself for the next phase of his endless reincarnation in this damned reality. A bright, blinding flash appears on the roof of a huge, destroyed skyscraper, immediately attracting a huge number of terrifying monsters. The action moves to the 21st century, where a crowd of people suddenly freezes in complete shock and confusion at what they see. A strange spatial portal appears in the sky and rapidly expands, and the surprised voices of people who have only seen such things in movies are heard. One of the young men, driven by reckless courage, resolutely heads towards the anomaly, completely ignoring the desperate pleas of his frightened girlfriend. The girl begs him not to come closer and suggests that he go home immediately. But the guy approaches the portal, and a terrible monster appears behind him. His girlfriend is in complete shock, silently watching as a huge swarm of demons pours out of the rift, instantly consuming this daredevil. After which the girl screams loudly and drops the phone from her hands, which falls to the ground and shatters into pieces. Horrible monsters, emitting loud screams, instantly rush at passers-by. They keep coming and coming from the opened portal, filling the streets. Frightened passers-by begin to run in panic in different directions, screaming loudly in horror and trying to find at least some kind of safe shelter. Gates began to open across the planet. Hordes of monsters poured into the streets of cities, threatening to completely destroy all human civilization. From all corners of the earth came reports of a monstrous invasion of monsters, which turned out to be incredibly numerous and extremely difficult to deal with. Once vibrant cities began to turn into ruined wrecks, over which terrifying monsters flew, searching for their next defenseless victim. One of the passers-by suddenly stops his running, as he notices something very strange and unusual behind him. He sees a girl who, with the help of her mysterious energy manipulations, instantly destroyed the monster, giving people a chance for salvation. In this terrible time for humanity, hope has flared up, as it has entered a new era called the New Genesis. Children with exceptional potential were gathered on an artificial island to undergo complex and lengthy training. Over time, this place grew into a thriving city, academy, which became the cradle of an organization called the Lair. It is here that, at the beginning of the new 7th cycle, a regressor named Jay arrives to once again try to change the predetermined fate of this world. A dangerous criminal with the ability to turn his hands into blades of ice takes a frightened young girl hostage. The police order the girl to be released immediately, but the criminal openly mocks them, calling the officers helpless pigs. At that moment, Jay appears silently behind him, like a shadow. The guy asks the man if he didn't hear the officer's orders to let the girl go. The criminal turns around in amazement and wonders how this freak was able to sneak up on him from behind so silently. Jay remains completely calm and silently watches the criminal's further actions, analyzing the situation with his cold and very experienced gaze. With a sharp movement, the man throws the girl aside and sends more insults towards the young man, clearly not realizing the full danger. The guy introduces himself as a police officer, but the man continues to insult him, after which he unleashes a series of powerful blows on the guy. He angrily shouts, calling the guy a dirty pig, and threatens to kill him in front of frightened passers-by and the police officers who arrived at the scene. Jay deftly dodges the blows and in a very quiet voice tells the bandit that he is now making his biggest and most fatal mistake. After which the young man goes on a swift counterattack and unleashes several blows on his opponent. The bandit is unable to block this attack, taking another blow to the head, his face distorted by a grimace of horror and intense, unbearable pain. At great speed, the bandit flies far to the side and, to the amazement of everyone around him, crashes into the solid concrete wall of the building. The criminal instantly loses consciousness, and the disgruntled cries of the police are heard, asking Jay why he has no control over his strength at all. The guy once again realizes that it is very difficult for him to fully control his power, which is already many times greater than normal human strength. This morning, a Metropolitan Police Department official, Jay, learned of a sighting of a human trafficker and dangerous former superhuman. The guy quickly arrived at the scene and is now watching a news broadcast on the screen, which says that the bandit was finally cornered. Jay looks closely at the unconscious body of the criminal. At that moment he hears a question from a colleague about why he is here. The young man replies that he was very close and decided to quickly deal with the incident without waiting for reinforcements. Nearby, a young colleague fills out a report and prepares to transport the detained criminal to a temporary holding cell. She secretly likes the young man and notes that today he looks different, more prestigious and extremely attractive. Another colleague approaches them, a police officer quietly complaining about the excessive brutality used to detain this dangerous criminal. However, Jay is little concerned, despite the fact that the department will once again have to deal with the consequences of his abuse of power. For him, all these people in the department are complete strangers. Since he began to degenerate, he has never gone to work. From the very beginning of the new regression, the guy behaved very strangely and remained a real unsolved mystery for all his colleagues. Jay drags the unconscious body of the criminal along the ground, no one knowing that behind his detachment lies a greater goal to save the world. Jay returned to the past time and again in order to prevent the terrible apocalypse that would inevitably come at the end of this cycle. He had undergone extremely unsuccessful regressions and returned to the past in order to prevent the death of young dragons. But unfortunately, absolutely all of his past attempts had been completely unsuccessful. In this world, baby dragons came to Earth for fun and to gain experience, but the vast majority of them died tragically. Some of them quickly went mad from endless wars and human malice. They completely lost their minds and soon died painfully. Someone, buried under an avalanche of alien hatred, also lost their minds, unable to bear existence in the conditions of human civilization. Other young dragons, unable to fulfill their life's mission, stopped their own hearts, ending this unbearable suffering. Each time this happened, The adult dragons completely lost control of themselves, succumbing to primal rage and thirst for destruction. Like an avalanche, they invaded the earth, destroying everything in their path and mercilessly destroying people. The regressor lived his lives over and over again, becoming so strong that it was no longer possible to increase his fighting power in this world. And yet, despite all his titanic efforts, the boy is unable to protect the vast world alone, relying only on his unique skills. Therefore, in the new cycle, the young man decided to radically change his strategy in order to finally achieve success in this endless and difficult confrontation. A colleague who is not indifferent to him suggests spending time together in the evening and tells him that a very good restaurant has recently opened nearby. The girl turned out to be persistent and invited the guy to go to dinner with her, if, of course, he doesn't have any important plans for that evening. Jay politely declines, explaining that he has urgent plans and that he has a long trip to distant Europe tonight. His path lay to the beautiful Italian city of Florence, where he hoped to find answers to his questions and prepare for the beginning of new important events. There, among the sun-drenched streets, he searched for that same green-haired girl whom he had met at the very beginning of his long and painful journey. Now she looked unusually peaceful. She was calmly weaving beautiful flower crowns for small children and playing with them completely carefree. The little girl puts a flower crown on her head and asks the green-haired girl with a smile how she looks in this new outfit. The girl replies that she is simply adorable. This statement makes the child very happy, and they begin to laugh loudly, enjoying the warm, sunny day. After which the children joyfully say goodbye to the green-haired girl. At this time, Jay quietly approaches her from behind and silently watches this peaceful scene. Jay breaks the silence and greets the girl loudly, causing her to instantly freeze in place, sensing the presence of a very strong stranger. The girl immediately withdraws into herself and instantly plunges into deep, disturbing thoughts, trying to understand who exactly decided to disturb her current peace. After a while, she turns around abruptly and looks with great surprise at the young man, whose aura seems incredibly powerful and heavy to her. Jay's face remains extremely stern, and in a quiet voice he informs the girl that she must come with him immediately. Beneath the mask of innocence lurked an entity known as Fallen Babylon, a creature capable of masterfully manipulating any language in the world. The girl continues to remain silent and studies the uninvited guest with great curiosity, trying to understand the true motives for his sudden appearance. After which she asks the guy why he was looking for her, to which Jay answers the green-haired girl that he has one extremely serious matter for her. The girl sighs heavily and asks the guy if he knows who she really is, to which Jay answers in the affirmative. After which the guy asks the green-haired girl if she knows who he is, to which the girl also answers yes, although there is irony in her words. She jokingly pretended that she actually knew Jay, allowing herself a light tone and playful manner, not attaching any particular importance to what was happening. However, noticing the guy's threatening appearance and the coldness in his gaze, her smile gradually disappeared, giving way to wariness and anxiety. The guy's aura becomes truly threatening. He asks the girl how she can know his name if they have never met before. In fact, the girl had no idea who he was or what his goals were, after which she points to the guy's jacket badge with his personal name on it. The girl voices her thoughts and says that she really has no idea who Jay is and what exactly he does in his daily life. The green-haired girl states that she knows one thing for sure. This young man is incredibly strong and has a lot of combat experience. She confidently states that Jay, with his appearance and heavy aura, definitely does not fit into this quiet place. The girl assumed that he had come to kill her, but seeing no obvious thirst for blood, she began to gradually change her wary tone. She then suggests that Jay is going to kidnap her, to which the guy replies that she is already pretty close to the correct answer. Suddenly, the girl asks if this guy is one of those who have a strange sexual attraction to dragons, but Jay interrupts her provocations and sternly demands that she stop fooling around, as he intends to protect her. He warns that if the girl does not do as he asks, he will have to resort to more ruthless methods of influence to achieve his goal. There is a strong belief among humans that green dragons possess a rare gift of foresight, making them extremely valuable allies. This means that, compared to other dragon clans, they are much more perceptive and react much faster in various difficult situations. The boy reminds her that green dragons have a better understanding of the world and stand above others, urging her to show wisdom that matches her origin. There is an awkward pause during which the guy silently watches the girl, patiently waiting for her final reaction to the proposal he made earlier. Green thinks for a moment, then asks if this means that if she is obedient and quiet, the guy will show her kindness and understanding. After some thought, The girl agrees to follow him, but she sets one obligatory and important condition. The guy is obliged to behave appropriately with her and always treat her as the most honored guest, ensuring maximum comfort and complete safety. The girl playfully extends her little finger to the young man and begins to smoothly move her hand, inviting him to consolidate their current agreement. Jay silently watches Green's gestures and becomes lost in his thoughts, analyzing the benefits of this union and the possible risks in his new and very dangerous cycle. After which the young man declares that he accepts this agreement, and they seal the deal with their little fingers, confirming the fidelity to every word spoken earlier. After some time, the young people reach the capital, where after a long journey they were able to catch their breath. Green woke up from a long sleep, slowly coming to her senses and hesitantly opening the door to her new room. The girl carefully walks out into the hallway and wonders if Jay has woken up yet. Green suddenly found the owner in a serious conversation with a mysterious black shadow, which looked extremely ominous in the semi-darkness of the house's corridor. Jay ordered the shadow to fulfill all their requests. This energy, the shadow of the Great Count, capable of summoning a clone with 50% of the power of the copied body. Having received clear instructions from the young man, the black shadow instantly dissolves into thin air, leaving behind only a barely noticeable trace of magical energy. Green begins to ask questions, but the guy resolutely brushes them off and calls this mysterious entity a simple and faithful executor. The girl looks closely at the young man and is genuinely amazed at the incredible precision and detail with which this combat clone was created. Green notices that Jay seems to never rest, constantly pushing important tasks onto others while remaining hypervigilant. Jay explains that this double is part of his own power, and while it works, the guy himself can stay nearby to ensure its protection. This news makes the girl smile slightly, but she thinks that this approach does indeed make some sense. Sitting down next to the young man, the green one kindly offers the guy breakfast. She reminds him that they only ate yesterday, and the guy skipped dinner altogether, but Jay dryly replies that he doesn't feel hungry at all. Despite his attempts to refuse, the green one flatly refused to eat completely alone, and demands the personal presence of the owner of the house at the common table. The guy begins to object, because high-ranking dragons are able to do without food and water, sustaining life only with their internal magical energy. The girl objected that food is not at all necessary for life, but it brings joy and, especially now, vital energy. After which the green one slowly gets up from the sofa and stretches sweetly, declaring that this won't do, and the guy should immediately go with her to the store. She claims that soon the guy will feel the real power of breakfast, which will fill his body with energy. Despite the early hour, there were a lot of people near the local supermarket. Their appearance caused a real sensation. Passers-by were very surprised, mistaking the green one for a world celebrity, and women could not take their eyes off Jay. In the midst of shopping, the guy began to wonder if they were buying too many different ingredients for their most ordinary everyday breakfast. The girl persistently urged him on, complaining about the completely empty refrigerator, and declared that she was not going to cook just today, so they needed supplies. After which she asks him to hurry home and promises to cook the most delicious breakfast the guy has ever tasted in his life. Looking at his watch, Jay suggested leaving all the groceries at home and having lunch in town, since it was already past breakfast time and they had one more place to visit. The companion sheepishly apologized, admitting that she had gotten too carried away with shopping, which had not happened in her boring life for a very long time. When she asked about the purpose of the trip, Jay answered succinctly that certain things were necessary to survive in this world, and that many difficult tasks still lay ahead. This statement greatly surprised the girl. Green does not understand at all what exactly this mysterious guy had in mind, and what goals he was pursuing. An elderly man of very repulsive appearance declares that the green one is divinely beautiful, and asks Jay if this companion is his beloved girl. Jay immediately put the insolent old man in his place, warning him that if he didn't want to lose his only eye, he should keep quiet and just get on with his work. Soon a joyful smile appeared on the girl's face. She received her personal card, which opened up many new and useful opportunities for her. Looking at her card, she noticed that she had never used bank accounts or modern holographic screens before. Holding the piece of plastic in her hands, the girl experiences a strange sensation, because now she finally has her own personal identification card. The guy responds by being very surprised that the green one never had an account or a watch, and wonders how she ever survived on Earth up until this point. Green continues to study the documents and asks Jay why she was given his last name, and why they chose the laconic name Bomb as her first name. The guy explained that he chose the names based on the 4 seasons of the year, since there are currently 4 powerful dragons in this vast world. The girl smiled happily in response, saying that she really liked this name. She began to hum a melody, saying that spring is the time of the return of life. Green admitted that she still felt a subtle shadow of fear emanating from the young man, whose power seemed almost limitless and frightening to her. Her gut instinct kept telling her that Jay was a deadly man, capable of destroying any enemy in his path. However, contrary to all logic, the girl sincerely does not believe that the guy is a bad person. Jay wonders how she could have come to that conclusion after just one day of dating, when he showed almost no warmth or care towards her. Green responds with absolute confidence that she has an intuition that surpasses human understanding, and it never fails her in choosing allies. As a true representative of the Green Dragon clan, she decides that she can well afford to place such trust in her new and mysterious companion. The girl smiles happily and believes that she needs to carefully observe her strange patron for some more time, in order to understand his true nature. At this time, Jay catches himself thinking that in his previous regressions, he never saw a sincere smile on the Green Dragon's face. For the young man, this was a good sign, and this new beginning seemed very promising to him. The guy closes his eyes and concentrates all his attention on the light wind. He sincerely hopes that in this regression, everything will turn out completely differently. The action moves to another continent, where a full moon has risen over a vast wasteland somewhere in Africa. A short girl with red hair, whose face is completely hidden by a mask, mercilessly interrogates another opponent, trying to find out the information she needs. She instantly responds to her defeated enemy's curses with a crushing blow to the face. The stranger suddenly becomes enraged and continues to inflict numerous blows on her opponent, turning this interrogation into a brutal reprisal against him. After some time, she finally calms down and thinks that she was wrong to get caught up in the battle excitement, because she could have accidentally finished off the enemy. She already has 199 victories in as many fights, and this flawless streak makes her genuinely proud. Taking off her mask, the girl eagerly awaits a new opponent and thinks about who can challenge her worthy. The next morning, the world's news feeds are filled with headlines about the mysterious red-haired warrior who has become a sensation across the planet. Jay is closely examining reports of a terrorist attack on the African continent that has resulted in thousands of civilian casualties. The boy is reading about a strange teenage girl, labeled a troublemaker by the media, when Green invites him to the table. She proudly displays the fish dish she has prepared, while the guy can hardly hide his strong disgust at the sight of this extremely dubious delicacy. The girl is genuinely inspired and assures that the treat was a great success, because she saw something similar in England and added rice to it. Jay looks at the prepared mess with horror, and seriously thinks that at this moment it would be much easier and better for him to just die. However, he soon begins to be distracted by anxious thoughts about the future, into which the guy becomes deeply immersed, trying not to pay attention to the strange smell of food in front of him. During dinner, Jay suddenly announces to Green his firm intention to immediately set out in search of the Red Dragon. The girl sighs heavily. This news clearly worries her. She explains that serious problems will definitely arise with Red, because she will not follow him so easily. The boy asks the girl what she thinks about helping him, but Green feels awkward about this request. She explains that their clans have always kept their distance from each other and never sought friendship. Jay asks what exactly explains her awkwardness, to which the girl replies that all the dragon clans pursue completely different goals. Green admits that she genuinely enjoys spending time with her boyfriend and making plans together. But red dragons are built completely differently. Their clan exists solely for the sake of endless war, violence, and the brutal display of their overwhelming power. Green warns that trying to drag her here by force would be a fatal mistake, because for red dragons, submission is tantamount to the most shameful death. Jay believes that if they don't find her as soon as possible, it will become extremely dangerous, since she is already being hunted, and sooner or later the red dragon will be killed. Jay asks the girl to help him. The green one hesitates at first, because she is surprised that such a strong person suddenly asks for help. Hearing this, the guy falls silent for a long time and begins to noticeably reflect on himself, thinking about his methods of interacting with the people around him. However, Green does not want her fellow tribeswoman to die a painful death and gives her consent, noting that the guy does not ask for such a favor every day. After some time, the girl playfully declares that she has one more small but mandatory condition for starting this mission. She finally gets the guy to try the strange dish, noticing how he's been cleverly avoiding the meal throughout their entire conversation. Jay realizes that he has to agree and reluctantly begins to eat the questionable food Bomb has prepared. Green is sincerely happy about her small victory and loudly repeats that the young man has finally fallen into her trap. Meanwhile, the action shifts back to the African continent. where the Red Dragon continues its endless battle, this time completely destroying a group of terrorists. She emerges from the battle once again as the absolute victor. But this triumph does not bring her the same joy as before. The girl catches herself thinking that the 200th anniversary victory seems pathetic and completely devoid of any meaning to her. Not far from the scene of the massacre, two surviving fighters whisper in horror, not believing their eyes, because their elite squad was exterminated by a single girl. The partner asks his colleague not to even try to call her a person, stating that she is a real monster in a girl's guise. The mercenary experiences paralyzing fear and replies that he is sure of only one thing: they do not have enough strength to survive in this meat grinder. The man doesn't have time to finish speaking, because suddenly the Red Dragon appears behind them and mockingly ridicules their pathetic attempts to hide in the ruins. The mercenaries freeze in horror, desperately hoping that the promised help from their leadership should arrive any minute. Noticing the Red Dragon very close, one of the mercenaries shouts loudly to his partner, warning him of mortal danger. However, it is already too late. The Red Dragon decisively raises his sword to deliver a crushing blow. But before she could strike, a bright and powerful flash of energy suddenly cut through the surrounding space. The dragon girl instantly deflects this sudden attack with her sword, barely holding back the pressure and wondering where this monstrous mana came from. Concentrating all her strength, Red swings her sword sharply, forcefully reflecting this powerful and dense energy field to the side. The mercenaries are frozen in complete amazement, as they cannot understand where this monster girl gets such a huge amount of destructive power. A giant figure in powerful metal armor, known to all as the legendary Night Hunter, suddenly appears on the battlefield. The mercenaries are overjoyed at the arrival of reinforcements, and the Night Hunter orders them to immediately collect the wounded and quickly retreat to a safe place. This warrior holds the high 8th rank among the elite superhumans of the entire African Union. Suddenly, the Night Hunter hears the ringing voice of a girl who ironically says that the Mister managed to truly surprise her. Looking at her broken blade, Red admits that the attack was powerful and professional. After this, the girl smiles defiantly at the Night Hunter and assumes that the local boss of the territory stands in front of her. The hunter heard that his opponent would be a dangerous girl, but she turned out to be much younger than he expected. Red replies that because of her excessive attractiveness, she is forced to always wear a mask that hides her face. The hunter assesses the huge gap in their strength and is surprised that the girl does not even try to run away. Red boldly declares what she would be if she gave up just because her weapon broke. She does not even allow the thought of a shameful flight, believing that death in an honest fight is the only worthy end for a warrior. Gathering all her crushing power, she rushes towards the enemy with the sole purpose of delivering a decisive blow. However, the hunter unexpectedly deftly dodges her attack, which greatly surprises the dragon girl, who is experienced in battle. The Red Dragon continued her furious attacks, but the Night Hunter deftly maneuvered and confidently parried her sword blows. After a while, a sly smile appears on the girl's face, as she finally notices a gap in the enemy's dense defense. At great speed, the Red Dragon approaches the Night Hunter and delivers a powerful blow directly to his groin. The girl stops abruptly and freezes in amazement, because she delivered a crushing blow, but the enemy did not even move from the pain. She looks at the warrior's armor and with growing horror realizes that her attack did absolutely no harm to the superhuman. The hunter only chuckled and noted that the girl clearly lacked real experience in fighting those who were superior to her in strength. He declares that all her past triumphs over weak enemies were nothing more than child's play, unworthy of a true warrior. The warrior says that such a fighting technique is a real shame, and decides to immediately teach her a harsh lesson in true mastery. His blade flashed through the air with such incredible speed that Red didn't even have time to react to this movement. The sword moved ever closer to the girl's head, and at the last moment it flared up with a blinding, bright golden aura of pure energy. The Red Dragon had absolutely no time to dodge, so she decided to block the attack in desperation. A bright flash of energy instantly illuminated the entire surrounding space. The colossal force of the blow threw the girl away, causing her to crash her body through a nearby brick wall. In her semi-conscious state, she realized the true skill of her enemy. The hunter strengthened his blow in the split second when she blocked the lunge. The warrior decided to finish off the Red Dragon by using his reserve forces, but when he approached the ruins of the wall, there was no one there. He decided that the girl had cowardly fled the battlefield, not even suspecting that she had quietly hidden behind a nearby wall. The girl is very surprised by the presence of the Green One here, to which she replied that she heard about the Red Dragon's troubles and decided to come to her aid. The Green Dragon immediately began to heal her allies' severe wounds, warning that the next skirmish could be her last. The red dragon furiously demanded that no one interfere with her battle, and flatly refused any outside help. To this, Green once again sternly warned that if the red dragon died, then all the fun on this planet would instantly end for them. The green dragon continued to heal the girl's wounds, and asked her to think about the consequences, because the death of one dragon would ruin the existence of all the others. Green smiled happily at Red, and admitted that she really wanted to stay and live on Earth, after which she asked her fellow tribeswoman to help her a little. These words cause Red to be very surprised, and she asks how exactly she can help Green, who has come to her rescue. The girl confidently declares that there is no point in running away from here, since this enemy is incredibly strong, and will catch them both in a matter of seconds. However, the green dragon quickly calmed her down, assuring her that their secret patron had already arrived and would soon take control of the entire situation. The young warrior was completely confused when Jay suddenly appeared behind the hunter, as if out of nowhere. The night hunter immediately sensed the presence of a stranger, and without turning around, rudely asked the guy who he was. There was no answer, and the night hunter began to frantically think about what tactics to use against such an unexpected and calm opponent. After a while, Jay dryly replied to the warrior that he was the escort of these girls. The action moves to another location, where the golden dragon sensed the guest, and was surprised by the aroma of the green dragon. The guy carefully watches her reaction and thinks about what steps she will take. The golden dragon smiles happily, and with childish delight asks the young man who he really is. The smile still never left her face, giving the conversation a strange lightness. Wanting to clear her doubts as soon as possible, Golden Dragon asked the following question, wanting to know if Jay was a bad person. The action shifts back to the African continent, where another incarnation of Jay repeats the same words to Night Hunter about the role of a simple escort. The Night Hunter carefully studies the young man, after which he turns his appraising gaze to the girls, still hiding behind the wall. He noticed the red dragon's violent reaction, and confidently stated that the girl did not need protection, after which Jay's voice was heard suggesting that they end this. The Night Hunter takes a sharp step forward and asserts his refusal, claiming that the red dragon has gone too far in her actions. In response, Jay reasonably notes that the girl did not kill anyone this time, and firmly promises that she will disappear from these lands forever. The guy once again insistently suggests to the Night Hunter to let the situation go and avoid senseless bloodshed. However, the Night Hunter, loyal to the laws of the African Union, flatly refused to make a deal with the stranger. He claims that the area is under his jurisdiction, and he intends to arrest the girl and destroy anyone who stands in his way. The air was instantly cut by a lightning-fast sword strike, but Jay seemed to dissolve into space, leaving his opponent to attack the void. Before striking, the hunter activated his most powerful skill, and the impact of the blade with the ground caused a blinding flash of energy. Giant energy waves roared across the area, sweeping away all living things and destroying the remains of buildings in their path. The stone wall behind which the young dragons were hiding was instantly shattered into small stones and dusty rubble. As the smoke from the powerful explosion began to clear, the hunter gradually realized that his devastating attack had missed its target. Even though the warrior didn't find the corpses of his opponents, he still hopes that they were hit pretty hard. Meanwhile, Jay suddenly appears in the enemy's blind spot and openly mocks the vaunted strength of this elite fighter. The Night Hunter feels the young man's presence with growing surprise, and does not understand why his best move did not cause damage. Jay, with obvious regret, states that the hunter should have accepted his peace offer and left without a fight. The warrior is deeply impressed by the boy's fighting skills, and does not understand at all how he manages to resist his attacks so easily. He finally falls into a state of rage, and decides to once again unleash the full destructive power of his blade on the impudent enemy. The hunter lets out a loud cry of rage and begins to strike Jay repeatedly, trying to literally grind him into dust. However, Jay instantly disappeared from the kill zone, appearing in different places, and in a calm but commanding voice ordered the hunter to be silent and listen to him with utmost attention. The warrior is still in a state of deep shock, amazed at the frightening ease with which Jay dodges all of his furious attacks. At this time, Jay begins to describe to the Night Hunter in an icy tone the bloody scenario of his near future. While escorting the young dragon, the officer will encounter an invisible and merciless monster. The guy says that the Night Hunter will lose this fight shamefully, losing both eyes and limbs, as a result of which he will lose both the monster and the girl. Jay told the hunter that soon this terrible fantasy would become his only reality. The man was overcome with primal terror, and he desperately tried to dissuade the guy. A loud cry of pain is heard from the Night Hunter, but Jay is not at all worried about him. knowing that there are powerful healers in the African Union. They are quite capable of restoring both vision and lost limbs if the injured soldier survives. However, Jay's true intention is much deeper. By crippling his opponent's body, he instills a crushing fear into their mind forever. As is well known, fear is one of the most effective control systems, and over the years the guy has learned to masterfully use it. Jay casually throws aside the body of the blinded warrior, who is completely demoralized and in unbearable physical pain. After the massacre, the young man suddenly turns towards the Red Dragon. Even this wayward young warrior was no exception. She stood frozen in stupor, watching such a brutal and swift execution. Turning to the Green Dragon, she asked in horror what kind of monster it was, to which she received a laconic answer, "It's just a man." Red was skeptical about this statement, and said that if this guy was a human, then she was an ordinary lizard. Meanwhile, Jay approached the girls and imperiously announced to the Red Dragon that from now on she would stay with him and live in his house. The young man promises the girl that he will give her enough freedom and support her. The young dragons remain silent and listen with noticeable tension to every word of this mysterious young man. After a while, the guy's face becomes stern, and he warns the girl about the consequences of any attempt to escape from under his protection. Green sees that the Red Dragon is in shock and intends to defuse the situation, asking to be allowed to explain everything calmly to her friend later, after which she winks meaningfully at the young man, clearly making it clear that she will help him tame the obstinate fellow tribeswoman. Jay, watching this scene, sighs heavily, but remains silent and completely ignores the girl's playful gestures, after which the young man tells the Red Dragon her new name and demands that she remember it for future communication. The Red Dragon asks Jay in response what kind of strange name he gave her, to which the guy promises to explain the meaning later. At this moment, a black fog appears around Jay's figure, and an invisible interlocutor reports to the Sovereign about the full completion of the current mission. At this moment, the truth is revealed. The real Jay was in a completely different point in space, and only his shadow clone was fighting the hunter. The real Jay is currently in the dense Amazon forests next to the Golden Dragon, completely controlling his double's every action. The guy praises the clone for his excellent work, after which he says that he will soon finish his business and return. Jay realized that the Red Dragon was completely wild, so it would be impossible to convince her with the powers of just one clone, and the participation of the Green one turned out to be very useful. The Golden Dragon, having heard the young man's conversation, curiously asked who he had just spoken to. The girl smiles playfully and calls the guy very strange, since he is constantly talking to someone and using his smartwatch. By nature, members of the Golden Clan love attention, and in 3 of the past 6 cycles, this dragon has led a glittering public life. However, despite its cheerful appearance, it was this dragon that ultimately brought the most widespread destruction to the world. Her fame has always been fraught with poison, as those who craved the spotlight eventually became the perpetrators of the greatest disasters. This is precisely why, in the current regression, the Golden Dragon chose complete solitude in the wilderness, hiding from the world even during its heyday. Zolotaya carefully examines her companion's wristwatch and sincerely admires this technological device. The girl is delighted by the holographic screen floating in the air, the clarity of the image of which far exceeds the old primitive devices of people. Suddenly, she is interrupted by an unexpected question from Jay, who directly asks why she is in this forgotten place. If the Golden Dragon came to Earth for entertainment, then she should have been among people, and not in the jungle among wild animals and bugs. The girl quickly denied everything, but Jay told her about his alliance with the Green Dragon, and Golden immediately understood why he smelled like her fellow tribeswoman. Jay tells the girl that he is genuinely interested in only one important thing. He asks the Golden Dragon if she is hiding in this wilderness because of her fear of people. Golden replies that she wasn't that afraid of them, and lived among them quite peacefully before. But some of the people looked at her very strangely, and some persistently followed her, which was really scary. Over time, the Golden Dragon became completely tired of their endless, greedy, and avaricious glances. To establish contact, Jay offered the girl bread, which greatly surprised Golden, and out of habit, she reminded him that dragons do not need food at all. The guy snaps his fingers, summoning a tiny void, which is a subspace capable of flooding entire cities. A powerful dark funnel instantly appears above him, from which dozens of ghostly hands begin to reach out. The Golden Dragon is greatly amazed by the demonstration of these incredible spatial manipulations. The girl looks with a surprised look at the huge bag that appears, which contains fresh baked goods, donuts, and fragrant bread. The Golden Dragon is completely delighted by such an abundance of delicious-smelling food and wonders if the guy really wants to treat her. Jay asks the girl to help herself, and Zolotaya's eyes widen with joy when she sees strawberry donuts and blueberry cakes. Taking advantage of the moment, the young man invited the golden dragon to move in with him, promising complete safety, cheerful company, and new friends. The girl was very surprised by this sudden proposal, and for a moment even stopped eating a huge amount of baked goods. The dragoness hesitated, remembering her mother's strict orders never to leave with strangers. However, the guy quickly found a new compelling argument. He promised the golden dragon to regularly buy her favorite macarons. The girl literally freezes from such a proposal, and it seems that it has finally won her heart. After which the action moves to the capital, where a bright and shining morning sun rises over the city. The red dragon stands on the balcony. She smokes nervously and becomes increasingly seething with an inner feeling of rage. The girl again and again recalls the devastating night hunter and her last difficult battle with the terrorists. She becomes uneasy and becomes increasingly irritated because she was unable to withstand the powerful fighter in this difficult clash. After this, the image of Jay appears in her mind, and the girl begins to get irritated that she succumbed to the influence of a mere mortal man. Rage and anger are overwhelming her, and she constantly thinks about how this could have happened. The green dragon quietly approaches her, and the girl immediately senses that Red's mental state is extremely unstable and causes great anxiety. She sincerely empathizes with her friend and quietly addresses the red dragon, trying to show maximum sympathy in this difficult situation. Suddenly, Green turns around. Jay enters the apartment with the golden dragon. She tries with all her might to maintain her dignity, assuring that she did not come for sweet treats. After this, the girl declares that the sausage roll was very tasty and even better than the most exquisite cream cakes. The golden dragon completely loses control and greedily begins to eat a huge amount of fresh baked goods and sweets. The girl is delighted and, being on cloud nine, says that the macaroon is a divine treat, crispy on the outside and soft on the inside. The green dragon comes out into the corridor and greets the guy. Golden freezes in amazement from this meeting. Bomb smiles happily at the golden dragon and reminds him that they haven't seen each other for ages. The girl is overjoyed, hugs her friend tightly, and praises her incredible beauty. The golden dragon asks if Bomb is really living with this man now. The girl confirms this and reports on the recent addition of the Red One to their company. Meanwhile, Jay thanks his shadow clone for his work and lets him go, promising to call on him whenever needed. At this moment, an angry Red returns to the room from the balcony, looking extremely displeased. Jay carefully watches the guest's behavior, because he is very interested to see her further reaction. Yerem continues to glare at the scene, not nearly as sentimental as her peers. The golden dragon immediately notices Yerem and loudly calls her Red for the whole apartment to hear. The girl quickly rushes to Yerem and pesters her with questions. She smells tobacco and begins to reproach the Red One for smoking, declaring that it is harmful to her. The endless chatter finally gets on Yerem's nerves. She unceremoniously grabs her guest by the lips, threatening to slam her mouth shut if she doesn't stop squeaking like a chicken. Red is filled with anger. She starts screaming and threatens to rip the annoying girl's beak off if this tiresome stream of words doesn't stop. Having settled down in the living room, the guy begins to interrogate his companions, showing a sincere interest in their real ages. During the conversation, it became clear that the green dragon was already 20 years old, while the golden baby was currently only 10. Red demonstrates a complete reluctance to engage in dialogue and irritably declares that she has turned 16, although by human standards she looks older. Golden immediately explained that they shouldn't be treated like children, because dragons grow faster than people. Red sarcastically noted that she was clearly proud of her body. In conclusion, the golden dragon asked the green one why they had such strange names, and the girl replied that these sonorous nicknames were given to them by their new patron. The golden dragon noted that Jay could not give them their true names without a coming-of-age ceremony, as it was too sacred a thing for her people. She decided that her name should sound like Gale. The guy did not argue, and assigned this name to her. The girl is very surprised that their names mean seasons. The green one means spring, the red one means summer, and the golden one means autumn. After which the guy notices her medallion. He states that it will be Ghoul. The golden one is very surprised at how he could know that the pendant on her neck contains Blue's egg. Jay confirmed that he was aware of the situation. The egg was in a state of polymorph. The dragon would be born soon, which meant they all needed to be extremely careful during this time. The girl looked at the young man in amazement, not understanding how a mere mortal possessed such deep knowledge. The guy promised to reveal all the secrets later at the general meeting. Jay reports that the girls have one unshakable rule. They are free to have fun however they want, but only within a strictly defined area. When asked about the gold, the guy explained that they should never disappear from his sight. He declared that he would personally ensure their leisure and comfort while they were under his supervision. And the Reds immediately sarcastically dubbed him a dictator. Immediately she found herself under the watchful gaze of the other dragons, hiding her extreme awkwardness. The girl only snapped back rudely. Bomb assured the young man that they would definitely stick together, and promised him to exercise utmost caution. Afterwards, to defuse the situation, she suggested that everyone go shopping and get identification cards for legal stay in the city. Guile liked the idea, and even Red agreed, although she grumbled a little, for the sake of decency, expressing her dissatisfaction with the need for a long walk through the shops. Jay handed the girl a bank card with clear instructions that she could buy absolutely anything she wanted, and there was absolutely no need to count the money spent today. The girl looks at the plastic card with great surprise, and asks if they can really spend as much money as they want. Jay stops at the entrance and calmly repeats once again that they can spend as much money as their hearts desire. The girls weren't at all embarrassed when using their bank cards, and were genuinely happy to have the opportunity to buy whatever they wanted. Every 5 minutes, Jay receives a message on his smartwatch informing him that hundreds of dollars are being debited from his bank card for various women's purchases. He silently studies the information on the holographic screen, and says in a quiet voice that these girls have a special talent for spending his money incredibly quickly. The girls were fascinated by the outfits and shoes, but Red was noticeably different from them. Her attention was drawn only to the powerful weapons displayed in the store windows. Upon returning home, Bomb apologized to the young man for the huge expenses they had made at the shopping center. The girl said that she wanted to buy her boyfriend new clothes or gifts, but the credit limit set by the bank on his card suddenly ran out. Guile joyfully asked the young man to look at her numerous new clothes, which she had managed to acquire thanks to his boundless generosity. The girl beams with happiness as she shows off her new outfits, saying she couldn't stop because all the clothes were so beautiful. After this, she shows off her smartwatch, and notes that it is exactly the same model as the young man's. This reaction from her sister causes Yerim the usual dose of irritation, and she cannot hide her dissatisfaction with the behavior of this overly enthusiastic person. Having calmed down, she shows Jay that she now has the same watch as he does. Yerim points to the new sword, telling the boy that the purchase was necessary, as the old blade finally broke in the last hard battle. Jay tries to find a common language with the girl, and asks if she likes the sword, to which Yerim replies that she never buys any junk. Gale rushes to her friend with bags, and asks her to try on some things, but Yerim abruptly interrupts her, and demands that she immediately shut up, and just leave him alone. Green asks the guy not to be offended, because Yerim is simply poor at expressing his feelings, although in fact she is very grateful for the care he has shown. Jay notices that Green hasn't bought anything for herself, after which he carefully examines all the purchases and waits with slight surprise for the girl to explain. Green points to the table and calmly replies that this is not true, because her purchase is already in a prominent place in front of them. The young man was very surprised by this choice. He did not expect to see a living plant in an ordinary flower pot. Jay asks the girl if she really enjoys caring for plants and devoting her time and attention to them. Green replies that with a good and sincere attitude, any flower will definitely bloom. She says caring for her green pets brings her a deep sense of satisfaction and inner peace. The memory of the moments of their flowering remains forever in her soul, as something truly warm and beautiful. The girl then asks the young man an important and serious question, trying to understand whether he understands the essence of the true values of dragons. She asks if he understands that true entertainment for dragons lies beyond delicious food and simple games. She sincerely does not understand how they will be able to understand this huge world if they are constantly located only within this small and limited territory. Jay shows the certificate and confidently says that he already has a solution, suggesting that everyone go to school together. Gold and Green accidentally overhear the conversation, and the very offer to study at a human school leaves them in a state of great shock. In Jay's spacious apartment, the friendly and cheerful voices of the girls are heard, loudly announcing their return after a long absence. Yerim stretches tiredly and complains with displeasure that this interview took too much time and took almost all of her energy. After some time, the girls notice that the guy is not at home. Gale, in great excitement, says that a terrible and frightening thought just came to her mind. Tears welled up in her eyes as she thought about how her sisters had successfully passed the interview, while she had shamefully failed her entrance exams to school. When Jay appears, the girl breaks down and tearfully confesses her fears, but the guy quickly calms her down, because he was already confident in the success of each one. This did not calm the golden dragon, the girl cried loudly, continuing to worry that she would not be able to get into the lair. After this, she asks where the young man was, The guy hands over the package, explaining that he went for exactly this. Jae claims that inside the package is exactly what the girl loves most in the world. Gayol is looking forward to cake and macarons, but Jae replies that this is not the case, because he has prepared something more that she loves even more than desserts. The action moves forward several years into the past, and the host reveals that he has an incredible guest at dinner tonight. After which, to the sound of loud music, the man greets the world-famous pop star who comes onto the stage. The announcer's voice announces that excellent chefs will prepare the star's favorite dishes right here and now. The host asks the girl what her favorite food is, because rumor has it that she survives only on morning dew. The girl smiles happily and says that she is still human, and that this would simply be impossible. She asks to give her a little time to think, and begins to remember what food she likes most. Jae opens the bag and takes out huge portions of fried chicken, which immediately begin to emit an appetizing aroma. The golden dragon begins to choke on his saliva, while Red wonders how it is that the girl has never eaten her favorite food. While the girls were happily chatting at the table, Jae went out onto the balcony, leaving them alone. Bomb approached the young man and invited him to join her meal, but the boy replied that he was full and declined. The green dragon continues to insist and tells the young man that he must join them at the table. Soon the phone rang. The guy activated the phone and found out that he was being called from the admissions office of the Logovo. The man on the other end explained that he was calling because of a small problem that had arisen at the girl's interview today. Jae asks what the man is talking about, to which the man asks in surprise if Bomb really didn't tell him anything about it. A member of the admissions committee reported that Bomb had performed brilliantly and had left the committee with a lasting impression of her abilities. None of the members of the commission present could find words of sufficient admiration to express the girl's merits. After a short meeting, they invited her to conduct the induction ceremony into the organization. The guy watches the happy girls, and at that moment hears from his interlocutor that the real problem is that Bomb refused to accept the offer. This is a great opportunity for the girl. The man would like to know if Jae could persuade her to accept the invitation. The guy replies that he won't do that, because if the girl wants something, then he wants it too. At this moment, Yerim comes onto the balcony, attracted by the conversation on the phone. The girl immediately guessed that the call was about the green one, but Jae abruptly cut her off and asked her to call the green dragon by name. Yerim immediately brushed it off and declared that the place was nothing more than a pen, after which she asked the boy if he really wanted to play house at his age. Then the girl falls silent and continues to smoke silently, looking thoughtfully at the night sky. After a while she asks the guy why he is going to send them to the lair. Jae replied that he wanted them to have freedom of choice and the opportunity to do whatever they wanted. But the girl stated that her only passion was fighting. She asked if there were any worthy opponents at this school, to which the guy replied that the best elite of the country gathered there. In response, Yerim only grinned and said that her future classmates were just a bunch of snotty boys. Throwing her cigarette aside, she sharply told the guy that she wanted to fight him. A bloodthirsty smile appears on Yerim's face, because she knows about Jae's strength and wants to understand what he is capable of in a fight. Jae refused, and suggested that the girl spend more time with her sisters and eat chicken with them. Yerim responded to the guy with rude curses, expressing her dissatisfaction with the refusal. Even after Jae left the balcony, the girl continued to swear, calling the guy the worst words and a terrible bore. Soon Gale approached her and asked her to stop being capricious and try the treat Jae had brought. But the girl responded with open aggression to the offer to try the chicken. Yerim complains that the chicken looks disgusting, but angry, he still takes a piece and bites into it in irritation. To her great surprise, she admits that the taste was truly amazing. The educational institution called the Lair is located on an isolated island and looks completely unique, unlike anywhere else in the world. It is considered the best special school where they train superhumans with various abilities, pushing their skills to the limit. Most of the participants came from wealthy families and influential clans, which immediately created a special reputation and a wary attitude among society around the school. Because of this, the institution has often been criticized for creating a closed world for the elite, inaccessible to ordinary people. Gayol, while researching the den on her tablet, was shocked by the school's reputation, believing that only aristocrats get in, and wonders about Jae's secret inheritance. The girl furiously proves that the guy is the secret child of the CEO of a huge corporation, assuring that he remained silent even when she spent huge amounts of money. Ultimately, the girl expressed great joy that they all successfully passed the selection process and were rightfully worthy of admission to this educational institution. After some time, Gayol finally calmed down completely and asked where exactly Jae and Red had disappeared to. Bomb recalls that his sister went to take a difficult practical exam, and the gentleman went with her as an official escort. In the lair, it was customary for young superhumans, who were often emotionally unstable, to be supervised by adult mentors to control their powers. Baum agreed that this was quite reasonable, since without constant supervision, Red could be a real danger to those around her. The information that the practical part of the Red exam was a sparring match between cadets made the girl eager to see this spectacular spectacle as soon as possible. However, Baum immediately cooled her ardor, saying that outsiders are practically not allowed there in order to completely avoid unnecessary chaos on the school grounds. The students looked at the girls with curious glances, trying to guess which influential families these unusual newcomers belonged to. The action moves to the Blue Dragon Hall, which is a huge training center for preparing future specialists. At this time, intense duels were in full swing inside the building, with students striving to demonstrate their best skills in front of their strict teachers. The young man makes a sharp lunge and delivers a powerful blow to his opponent, which instantly knocks him off his feet. Excited cries immediately spread through the spectator stands as people were amazed by the incredible strength and speed of this young fighter. Among the parents watching their children's progress, Jay stood out, closely following everything that was happening in the arena. An unknown man emerges from the shadows and tells the escorts that he understands their reaction, but asks everyone to calm down quickly. He insists that such behavior makes the school's future cadets even more nervous ahead of their important entrance examinations. After this, the man introduces himself as the head professor of the Blue Dragon School, who is personally responsible for the training of all new gifted students. He smiles amiably and declares that he is sincerely pleased to meet the esteemed escorts who have arrived at this training center today. Those present immediately begin to admire this influential man, noting his stately figure and extremely confident manner of communication. However, Jay remains wary and does not share the general excitement. At this time, the referee loudly announces that contestants number 124 and number 7 are called into the arena for the fight. Yerem slowly walks onto the battlefield, watching the enemy, the girl barely containing her irritation due to the premonition of a boring battle. The enemy casts an angry and distrustful glance at the girl, clearly underestimating the hidden strength of his new opponent. Yerem states that if the fight does not bring her joy and satisfaction, she will simply run away from here without waiting for the official end of the fight. In the crowd of spectators, two guys were animatedly discussing the fight. One of them admitted that Yerem was not at all his type. His comrades supported his opinion and confidently placed his bet on the experienced graduate, who had previously gone through the rigorous school of combat training. The guy claims that Sophia was in the ranks of Rail even before joining the academy, which has always been considered a very serious and elite achievement. Rail is a special unit of hunters from Russia, who gained worldwide fame for their role in the Great War. These fighters received recognition throughout the world, as their actions often proved decisive in key and most difficult battles. Rail's training methods were considered some of the most brutal in the world, instilling fear even in seasoned warriors. Hunter training often bordered on real physical torture and required extreme endurance and willpower. Those who survived such training were considered powerful and virtually invincible fighters, capable of defeating any strong opponent. Before the fight began, the girl's father approached her and loudly admonished her, reminding her of the high expectations of their leadership. The man loudly shouts that he has no doubt about his daughter's triumph, which greatly embarrasses the girl before the start of this important and responsible duel. Yerem didn't miss the opportunity to make a sarcastic remark, calling Sophia a daddy's girl, and urging her to start fighting soon to show her true strength. Red continues to mock her opponent and asks why she doesn't just give up and run away to her daddy for protection. Suddenly, Red stops her bullying as her angry rival demands that she shut up immediately and stop this stream of insults. Sophia glares at the Red Dragon and promises with cold determination that her opponent will not emerge from this fight unscathed. The atmosphere is heating up. The Red Dragon, having caught real courage, demands that the girl immediately attack and show everything she is capable of. The young men in the front row share their impressions, and come to the conclusion that both participants in the fight scare them to death with their aggressive behavior. Jay remains completely calm as the referee's voice is heard ordering the opponents to take their positions immediately. Sophia goes to her corner of the ring and immediately takes a fighting stance, demonstrating perfect technique and readiness to make a sharp lunge. The Red Dragon remains extremely relaxed and continues to look at her opponent with an arrogant gaze, without showing a shadow of fear or doubt. As soon as the signal sounds for the fight to begin, Sophia immediately rushes into the attack and delivers a powerful blow to her opponent with frightening speed. The Red Dragon calmly parries the attack and notes to himself that the enemy's speed is truly impressive. At this point, Yerim manages to firmly grab Sophia's hand, and the girl admits that she is much better prepared than most ordinary cadets. Immediately after this, the red dragon counterattacks and delivers a powerful blow with its blade. However, Sophia was able to deftly dodge this attack and deliver a powerful kick. Despite Sophia putting all her strength into her attack, the red dragon manages to block the blow. The red dragon was infuriated by this and screamed in rage that her outfit, chosen with great difficulty, was hopelessly ruined. Sophia continues to attack the girl with a barrage of blows, but Red easily dodges each attack. She steps aside and decides to change tactics. The girl is preparing to use her signature strike. Waiting for the right moment, Sophia moves forward with lightning speed and delivers a powerful punch. The red dragon was ready for this attack. The girl parries it and raises her training sword to strike. The furious fight continues. Yerim tries to reach her opponent with her sword, but she is unsuccessful. The red dragon lunges forward and strikes again, but her opponent instantly moves out of range. After which, the girls push off the ground with force and approach each other at great speed. Noticing a gap in the enemy's defense, the red dragon leaps high into the air, intending to end this fight. A moment later, a crushing blow followed. And although Sophia managed to block, the monstrous force of the blow instantly shattered the bones in her hand. Despite the fact that the girl is experiencing severe pain, she is determined to continue the fight. The red dragon only smirked in response, making it clear that she would not play along. Yerim rushes into the attack with determination. It is obvious that any mistake by Sophia could be fatal. Having performed a spectacular acrobatic somersault, the red dragon finds himself behind the girl. Sophia turns back in amazement and hears the red dragon calling her an idiot. Red declares that she is tired of fooling around and that they will now fight with full force. This was followed by a crushing blow to the head, which caught the girl off guard. The red dragon does not stop and continues the attack, delivering another powerful blow, finally crushing the opponent's defense. The force of the attack was so gigantic that it threw Sophia aside and literally slammed her into the metal fence of the arena. The girl suffered serious injuries and, choking on blood, desperately tries to get to her feet to continue the fight. At this moment, the red dragon majestically approaches his defeated opponent and solemnly points his training blade at her. Suddenly, the referee's loud voice is heard, announcing to everyone present that number 124 has won this tense fight. Laughing, Red loudly calls Sophia a weakling and a daddy's girl, demonstratively celebrating her complete triumph right in front of the crowd. As she left the arena, Yerim did not skimp on caustic mockery directed at the entire academy, emphasizing her obvious superiority over the local cadets. While the father and medics rushed to help the wounded girl, the stands literally exploded with discussions about the incredible power of the red dragon. The guy shares his impressions with admiration and tells his friend that Yerim doesn't have a single scratch after such a hard collision. The students had no idea that Sophia, the acknowledged leader, would be so weak in comparison to the new student at school. Meanwhile, doctors continue to restore the girl, and voices can be heard from the stands saying that Sophia is only here because of her beauty. Hearing the bullying from her peers, Sophia's face darkened, realizing the depth of her shame in front of the entire elite school. At this point, the medical worker tries to calm the father, saying that help has been provided, and the girl will be completely fine. Sophia is very irritated, and furiously convinces her father that nothing is over yet, and that she is capable of fighting to the end. The father tries to calm his daughter down, saying that she did everything she could, although at her current level it was impossible to defeat that girl. The man continues to say that he is not disappointed with his daughter in any case. Sophia glances at the knife hanging on his belt. The father continues to support the girl, saying that any defeat only makes them stronger and hardens the character of a true fighter. The man continues his endless tirades, but at this point the nurse distracts him and asks him to urgently pay attention to his daughter's behavior. The father is amazed to see that the girl has risen to her feet on her own and is confidently heading towards the other side of the arena. Filled with fierce hatred, Sophia says under her breath that she has not yet given up and is ready to go to any extreme measures for the sake of her revenge. Having quietly snatched a sharp dagger from her father, Sophia quickly rushes after the retreating red dragon, completely ignoring the rules of fair combat. In a loud voice, she demands to know where she is going and states that their confrontation is not over yet. A moment later, Sophia is there and delivers a vile blow straight into her opponent's back, causing shock and amazement among all the spectators. All this action takes place in front of everyone present, including Jay, who continues to closely monitor every move on the battlefield. Screaming in sharp pain, the red dragon jerked and began to shower her attacker with curses. Sophia completely lost her mind and control over her actions, shouting insults and sincerely wishing a quick death on her offender. Loud cheers echoed through the stands, and all the surrounding spectators literally froze in shock at the bloody spectacle they witnessed. The teachers are very concerned about the incident, and the head professor suddenly gets up from his seat to intervene in the situation. Jay is in the stands and watches the events closely, but he is in no hurry to intervene in this dangerous conflict. The impact was so strong that the girls flew back to the opposite corner by inertia, destroying the structure with their powerful collision. Upon impact with the fence mesh, they scatter in different directions, filling the hall with the roar of breaking metal and the screams of frightened cadets. A demonic glint appears in the red dragon's eyes, and the girl feels joy, as she has been waiting for a real battle for a long time. Sophia has no intention of stopping, and screaming loudly, she again rushes into a furious attack on the red dragon, wanting to inflict another wound on her. Yerem deftly dodges this attack at the very last moment, and the enemy's dangerous blow only passes by glancingly. With a sharp movement, the red dragon grabs the girl by her long hair, completely depriving her of the opportunity to make any maneuver or retreat. A bloody aura suddenly erupts around Yerem, and the red dragon promises the girl a truly harsh retribution for this vile act. She then delivers a powerful punch straight into Sophia's face, causing her to stagger and lose her bearings. Those around are seriously worried, and are asking the alarming question of who will be able to stop this bloody chaos. A powerful blow from the red dragon sends the girl flying backwards, turning the fight into a one-sided and brutal beating. Yerem doesn't stop there, and pulling a bloody dagger out of her body, declares that the fun is just beginning for her. Her eyes flash with a hellish demonic radiance. The girl promises to do to the enemy the same thing that she did to her a moment ago. At the last moment, Sophia's father manages to intercept the red dragon's hand. The man screams loudly and demands that this madness stop immediately. The red dragon tries to break free. The girl screams and demands to be released immediately. The professor insists that the mages immediately create a protective dome and stop the broadcast, hiding what is happening in the arena from prying eyes. The nearby magicians immediately carry out the professor's order, striving to take complete control of the situation and ensure safety as quickly as possible. They raise their hands in a ritual gesture, and the entire space around them is instantly filled with bright blue energy, forming a strong barrier. Within seconds, Sophia's father and the red dragon find themselves tightly enclosed in a strong energy dome that cuts them off from the outside world. Yerem asks in surprise why everyone attacked her. Because this scoundrel started first and plunged a sharp knife into her back. The father insists on his own, noting that with such strength the girl could have shown leniency and not crippled her rival so cruelly in front of everyone. To which Red replies, should she really have stood by and done nothing while they were trying to kill her in such a vile and dishonest way? In the midst of an aggressive argument, a professor intervenes, insistently asking both opponents to calm down immediately for the sake of maintaining order in the school. The professor said he had already called Yerem's guardian and insisted on immediate medical attention. Seeing that the girl continued to shower everyone with curses, the man admitted that he understood her and had personally observed everything that was happening from the very beginning of the fight. He lowered his voice to a low whisper and told the angry girl that he couldn't watch this situation worsen and threatened to turn into a disaster. The man quietly repeats to the red dragon that this will have an extremely negative impact on the reputation of her entire family in the future and will affect everyone close to her, because she is not the only one in this family. The red dragon gradually calms down, and images of her younger sisters suddenly appear in her head. The professor's voice is heard, persistently asking the girl if she can allow such a sad outcome for her loved ones. He suggests that Krasnaya resolve all issues personally with him right now, before her official guardian arrives at the scene. However, the man does not have time to finish, as he is suddenly informed that the red dragon's escort is already here. A narrow passage appears in the energy dome, and Jay slowly emerges from it, remaining completely calm. The boy demands that the professor immediately stop pressuring the injured child and suggests that they all go outside together for a serious conversation. Yerem calms down completely and watches with great surprise the decisive actions of the guy who so bravely stood up for her interests. At this moment, the girl realizes that she has indeed become the cause of an extremely unpleasant situation for all members of her family. The action moves to the main majestic building of the academy called the Lair. In a huge, spacious room, attendants sit opposite each other, and a professor brings out a tray with the famous elite Taiwanese oolong. The man begins to tell the guests that many people consider this rare tea to be an excellent remedy that calms the nerves very well. After which the professor looks closely at Jay and thinks that the guy has an incredibly high level of strength, since he passed the protective barrier so easily. However, he cannot remember anything, and realizes that he has never heard of the young man himself or his mysterious clan before. The professor suggests that Jay be watched closely, after which he begins a conversation, and tells everyone that he doesn't even know where to start. The man looks around at his silent companions, then sincerely declares that he is very sorry about the incident that happened in the arena. He emphasized that both girls had already left the infirmary and were not seriously injured, so for the sake of peace at the academy, it was better to hush up the matter. The man believes that unnecessary discord is unacceptable in the Blue Dragon School, and insists that everything must be resolved right now. Sophia's escort listens silently to the influential man's proposals, and tries to maintain an outward calm. After this, the man sighs heavily and apologizes for his daughter, citing her youthful impulsiveness and temporary excess of emotions. The man says he is very sorry because strong emotions at that fateful moment got the better of his daughter and led to a vile act. However, Jay was completely adamant. He was not at all interested in other people's apologies, and he firmly stated that he did not accept them. Sophia's father suddenly jumps up from his seat and asks the young man if he understands who he is talking to and what organization he represents. The man states that they are adults, and they need to resolve everything peacefully as soon as possible without unnecessary lengthy arguments. Jay responds with confidence by stating that they are on unequal terms, and asks the big guy if this is really how people from their area apologize. Sophia's father asks the guy if he really wants him to drag his injured daughter from the hospital to apologize. Jay confirms this without a hint of embarrassment. The professor intervenes again in this tense conversation, persistently calling on both guardians to exercise elementary prudence and calm. Jay continues to put psychological pressure on the man, directly asking him why he didn't stop his daughter earlier in the fight. The man starts shouting angrily at the whole room and declares that everything happened too quickly. In response, Jay states that this is the most ridiculous and pathetic excuse he has ever heard from a grown and experienced person. The guy asks him if he's ashamed to use his own child as a cover, and this becomes the last straw for the thug, who jumps to his feet, losing his composure. He states that his patience is not limitless, after which he roughly grabs Jay by the collar, trying to intimidate him with his physical superiority. The brute arrogantly asked if a representative of an obscure family from the backwoods was truly ready to challenge a powerful organization. Jay remains extremely calm and carefully observes this extremely aggressive reaction of the man, without making any unnecessary movements. Sophia's father continues to scream and doesn't even notice the sharp dagger next to his neck. A moment later, he suddenly calms down and looks with great surprise at his own knife in the hands of the young man. Jay examines the weapon and says that the dagger is very sharp, so things could have turned out badly if the red dragon hadn't been lucky. The brute froze in shock, not understanding at what exact moment he lost his own weapon. Jay ironically explains that the sheath was attached too loosely, so it was not particularly difficult to draw the blade unnoticed. At this point, it dawns on the thug that his interlocutor has not lost his utmost vigilance for a single second. Jay, with a dark, chilling expression on his face, advises the thug to stick to crowded places and avoid dark alleys from now on. Then, with a sharp movement, Jay throws the knife to the floor. From the powerful blow, the blade penetrates deep into the stone slabs. Sophia's father immediately realizes that this young man is not as simple as he seemed at first glance. The brute is suddenly overcome by a primal fear, and he does not find the strength in himself to respond. Returning to the professor, Jay dryly announced that their conversation was officially over. The professor tries his best to hide his fear and excitement, so a fake smile appears on his face. Outside, the red dragon was already waiting for the young man, having managed to recover her strength after a difficult fight. Jay calmly turns to the girl and asks how she feels after this dangerous fight. When asked about her health, the girl proudly replied that she belonged to the Great Red Clan, and such wounds were nothing to her. However, it is clear from the girl's appearance that she actually feels a strong sense of guilt. Yerim asks the guy if he really thinks she did the wrong thing in that critical situation. The Red Dragon honestly admitted that she felt personally responsible for everything that happened. The girl reflects and says out loud that she should have behaved more decently in the arena. Suddenly, Jay reassured her, saying that she had made no mistakes and had done everything absolutely correctly. The guy gave her some advice for the future and said that next time the enemy should be killed where there would be no unnecessary witnesses. Yerim did not expect such an answer and continues to silently look at her guardian with undisguised amazement, after which a satisfied smile appears on the Red Dragon's face, as the girl is happy with their shared views on the world. Slowly leaving the arena, Yerem asks the guy not to regret what happened and reminds him of his own words. Once outside, Jay instructs Red to start packing her things as soon as she returns home. Yerem asks about the reasons, to which the young man replies that she is obliged to move to the lair dormitory. Suddenly, a loud male voice is heard, insistently asking Jay to wait a bit. The professor appears nearby. He tries to start a conversation, and the usual smile appears on his face again. The guy dryly asks what's wrong and reminds them that they've already finished all their discussions. The professor confirms this and insists that he has something else important to say. But Red reacts aggressively and declares that she has had enough of today's lectures. The man replies that there will be no moralizing and asks the girl if she would like to become a freshman representative. This role promised the status of the face of the educational institution, an impressive stipend in the form of rare artifacts, and wide recognition. Jay was skeptical that such decisions were not made alone, but the professor was quick to reassure him with his closeness to the vice president. He continues to persuade the guy and strongly advises him not to miss such a rare chance, which opens up enormous opportunities for the girl. Looking at the man, Jay pondered the nature of demons, comparing what he saw with his own experience and hidden knowledge of this world. He knew very well that the vice president of the academy was a demonic person. The professor of the institution is also a being who is only slightly inferior in rank to his high-ranking patron. Unlike superhumans, who are protected by divine power, these creatures cultivate a destructive and black void in their souls. If such a creature loses control, it is inevitably overcome by a mad thirst for murder and uncontrollable rage. There are exceptions to the rule, but most demonic people are extremely prone to violence, as well as base lust. Because of these demonic creatures, the world has already faced a great threat that brought humanity to the brink of complete extinction. In his first and second regressions, Jay lost something very important precisely because of such superhumans who betrayed their ideals. The boy imagined countless times how he would kill the professor, ridding this world of his presence. But every time this creature appeared nearby, the guy showed inhuman patience and suppressed his true intentions. However, he understood that fate would still place this heavy burden of final reprisal against his enemies on his shoulders in the future. Hiding his thoughts, Jay replied to the professor that he understood the proposal, but the final word remained with the Red Dragon. The guy gives the girl a hard look and reminds the man that he is just her escort. The professor chuckles quietly and says that the guy is, of course, right, and the final decision should be made by the girl herself. The man begins to assure that the Blue Dragon School will undergo many large-scale and positive changes from this very moment. The professor says the girl can create a future for their school and hopes for her participation in this year's final event. The man took the girl by the hand in hopes of a quick agreement, but she only snapped, a short and cold no. When the professor asked her what she had just said, the girl honestly admitted that she was simply bored. The man is very surprised and wonders why she came to the entrance exam to the academy at all. Yerem begins to tell that on that day she was simply lying in her bed and frankly doing nothing. After which she answers the surprised man that she became very bored and finally wanted to have a good fight with someone. It seems that the professor is not going to give up so easily and admit defeat in this dispute. He continues to follow the young people and persistently asks the girl to look carefully down at the panorama that opens up. Yerem lazily shifts her gaze and wonders why she even needs to fulfill this strange request from the annoying teacher. There was a huge crowd of reporters below, so Yerem asks who they are and what they are doing here in such numbers. The professor tries to put pressure on the girl and begins to tell her that all these people are waiting for his personal opinion regarding today's incident. After which he states that his words could have a very strong influence on the further development of today's difficult situation. This means that the Red Dragon's entire future life in the lair now directly depends on what exactly the professor tells the journalists. The man asks the Red Dragon if she understands what he is talking about, to which the girl gives a sharp negative answer. The young people slowly walk away down the corridor. The professor casts a heavy glance at them and expresses hope that the girl will not regret it. After which, a dark aura suddenly flares up around him, and his eyes begin to emit an ominous red glow of a demonic creature. As soon as the Red Dragon left the hall, she was immediately surrounded by a crowd of noisy journalists with cameras and microphones. Questions poured in, people asking about the reasons for her admission, the conflict with Sophia, and her ambitious plans for the near future. The girl froze in surprise under such pressure, while journalists tried to find out whether she harbored a grudge against her defeated opponent. Yerem begins to get noticeably irritated and wonders what is really wrong with all these annoying people. A woman in the crowd confidently declares that her interview will go viral and instantly spread throughout all Korean online communities. She asks if the girl really behaved so aggressively at the interview to draw attention to the revival of her family. The increased attention and numerous bright flashes of cameras make the Red Dragon even more nervous. Seeing all this, Jay resolutely blocked the press's path and demanded that they immediately leave the injured girl alone. Yerim gave the camera a sly smile as she finished, declaring that she would now give them exactly what they were all dying to hear. With a sharp movement, the Red Dragon snatches the microphone from the reporter's hands and announces that he will tell about his further intentions. The girl smiles broadly into the camera, after which she declares that she is here only for fun and new romances. Soon the bustle of exams is left behind, and the heroes finally find themselves within the walls of a cozy dormitory inside the lair. A calm atmosphere reigns as pink cherry blossom petals slowly fall in front of the luxurious private building in the heart of the den. Gayol was indescribably delighted and declared right from the doorway that she would take the best room in the house. The girl jumps happily and tells her friend that this apartment is incredibly expensive and very spacious, after which she ran to the second floor, while the Red Dragon tried to stop her, claiming the largest room. Reaching the room on the second floor, Gayol slowly opens the doors and freezes on the threshold from the magnificence he sees. Her mouth drops open in amazement, admitting that this room looks absolutely stunning. The girl is absolutely delighted with the huge bed and modern TV, and the room is filled with warmth and light. Yerim is unwilling to give in and claims this room for himself, noting the presence of a convenient balcony for smoking. Zolotaya objects and says that her friend can't do that, because the largest room is actually located right next door. However, the Red Dragon remains adamant in her choice, and the Golden Dragon meekly agrees to give up this room to her. On a small stand in the room stands a mysterious blue dragon egg, attracting attention with its unusual appearance. Bomb carefully sprinkles the egg with clean water and says that the baby will soon be born into this world. The girl continues to talk tenderly to the egg and doesn't notice how Jay silently enters the room. The guy asks why she sprays the surface and listens attentively to the explanation of this unusual care ritual. The girl replies that this is prenatal education, because blue dragons love moisture and need it from birth. When the time comes to hatch, the small protective amulet automatically turns into a real dragon egg. Bomb asks the guy if he knows that lately the entire lair has been talking about nothing but the Red Dragon's antics. Jay learns that the main topic of gossip was the girl's recent interview and bold statement to journalists. Then she announced to everyone that she had come to the academy to have affairs, and the news instantly spread across the internet. Jay activates the holographic screen and begins watching the scandalous video featuring his ward. At this time, Yerim sprawled out on the sofa like she owned the place, sincerely not understanding what all the fuss was about. The girl leans towards the Golden One and asks if she knows what it really means to have affairs. Gayol asks back whether the Red Dragon herself knows about this, to which Yerim pointedly replies that it's time for their chick to learn about pistils and stamens. Gayol timidly admits that she is not sure whether she wants to listen to such revelations, because her mother taught her not to know too much. However, the Red Dragon insists on his own, declaring that it is time to give his friend an educational course. Continuing to fool around, Yerim grabs the Golden Dragon's hand, causing the frightened girl to start screaming frantically for help. Watching this chaos, Bomb silently places headphones on the Blue Dragon's egg to protect the baby from bad influences. The next morning arrives. The birds are filled with joyful chirping, basking in the rays of the sun. The Red Dragon tosses and turns lazily in bed, clearly not intending to leave it, and decides to sleep a little longer. However, her peace is disturbed by increasing noise and stomping approaching the bedroom door. The door bursts open and Gayol bursts into the room, loudly announcing that they have serious problems. Yerim tries to get up, complaining that she didn't sleep all night and only fell asleep in the morning. When her friend asks her if she's been watching any trash again, Red Dragon smugly admits that she's been watching those same love videos all this time. Gayol rushes her, stating that there are more important things to do now, to which Yerim grumbles that he will kill her if the reason turns out to be trivial. Entering the common room, Yerim freezes, and the remnants of sleep instantly disappear. She wonders why everyone is gathered here at such an early hour. The friend stands silently over the Blue Dragon's egg, watching as it begins to vibrate violently. Everything indicates that the baby is about to hatch, and the tense anticipation of this moment is felt by each of them. Watching what is happening, Jay involuntarily catches himself thinking that the birth of a new life is not always a bright and joyful event. The thought echoes with anxiety inside him, reminding him that coming into the world can bring not only hope, but also pain. A dark memory from a past regression comes to his mind. The baby that was born turned out to be dead. He clearly hears his mother's piercing scream and the voice of his comrade, who calls him captain and tells him that they are late. The woman then held the child's lifeless body close to her, and this old pain echoed in the boy's heart again. At that time, the environmental situation was terrible, and the nearest hospital was blown up. Jay once again abruptly interrupts his thoughts, trying to drive away the painful and difficult visions. The guy wonders why this particular dark vision overtook him at such a moment. Meanwhile, the girls, oblivious to Jay's condition, continue to stare at the egg in fascination. Silence reigns in the room, but it is suddenly cut by the cracking of an eggshell, and even the impulsive Yerim freezes in surprise, afraid to move. Cracks spread rapidly across the surface, and a moment later a tiny blue paw appears from under the rubble. Another second, and the head of an incredibly charming dragon emerges from the egg. Bum, experiencing a strong emotional uplift, sincerely congratulates the newborn baby on her birth. With tenderness and care, she carefully cleans the baby from the remains of the shell. The girl acts carefully and attentively, as if obeying an ancient maternal instinct inherent in her very nature. Jay asks the girl where she learned to treat a baby like that, to which Green replies that their mother took care of them the same way. After this, she offers the guy to hold the newborn in his arms, but Jay refuses, while Gayol literally glows with the desire to touch the baby. Bomb hands her the little dragon, but asks her to be extremely careful, because its skin is still very tender. The golden dragon hugs the baby with delight, and when Gayol offers Yerim to hold the baby, she only grumbles that her friend can mess with her as much as she wants. However, the golden dragon decides to involve her in the process and unceremoniously places the baby on the girl's lap, who, confused, continues to grumble about the unnecessary fuss around her. At that moment, the little dragon yawns sweetly, causing even the stern Yerim to soften for a moment. Yerim looks closely at the tiny baby, and reluctantly admits that the little newborn girl does look incredibly cute and adorable. Guile took the opportunity to tease Jay, and advised him not to be so stingy in showing his human feelings in the future. The girl says that there is no need to be so cruel, because such cold behavior can make the little girl very upset. Red smiles contentedly and wonders how long this strange guy will continue to play hard to get. After this, she declares that she will throw the baby at the guy, and all the consequences of such an act will lie solely on his conscience. Guile asks the girl if she is really going to do this. Red replies that she has only one goal in this house. Yerim takes a swing to throw the baby, and says that he really wants to see with his own eyes how this cold-blooded guy finally panics. Zolotaya screams at the girl, asking if she has gone crazy. At that moment, Jay quickly snatches the child from her arms, preventing a dangerous situation. Bomb turns to the guy and asks him to pet her a little, since the little dragon is already in his strong arms and feels completely safe. Jay thinks for a long time and continues to silently look at the tiny baby dragon, trying to understand his responsibility for this fragile and living creature. After which he very slowly extends his hand to the cub and carefully touches her forehead, trying not to harm this amazing creature. The boy continues to look closely at the little dragon, thinking about how unusual she is. Suddenly he asks what the golden one is doing. The girl takes a picture of him and states that this is a very rare scene, and it is better to capture such moments. After which Baum invites the young man to take a group photo in honor of the birth of a new member of their family. The girls ask why she is holding a flower in her hands, to which Baum replies that she absolutely needs this beautiful accessory for a successful photo. She decorates the guy's head with a bright red rosebud, but Jay is not at all happy with this strange action, and continues to stand motionless in place. After this, Baum attaches a small flower to the blue dragon's head, trying to make the newborn baby's image even cuter and more attractive. The girl enthusiastically declares that it is very cute. Red replies that the guy clearly will not agree with her assessment of such a ridiculous appearance. After which the girls begin to persistently persuade Red to take a photo together, to which she replies that she is not eager and that for her it is some kind of cringe. At this time, Zolotaya is looking for the best angle for the upcoming photo and asks the girl not to be so grumpy, but just smile at the camera at least once. Jay remains extremely stern and focused, after which he rushes the girls, sincerely wanting to finish all these stupid and unnecessary formalities as quickly as possible. After feeding the baby dragon, Green announces to the boy her plans to train the baby before the new semester officially begins at the academy. She plans to teach the little one polymorphism through transference magic as soon as possible, so that she can take on human form for disguise. Transference magic is one of the most ancient abilities of dragons, allowing them to pass on knowledge and skills to younger generations through direct spiritual contact. This skill allows you to transfer mana from one creature to another, to quickly teach them a specific and complex magic spell. Usually the one who is taught does not pay any price, and the one who teaches voluntarily gives his precious time of life for the success of this dangerous process. Bam understood the enormous risk, but she really wanted the baby, who was born later than the other dragons, to immediately feel truly happy. She learned polymorphism in ancient times, and the little blue dragon still knows absolutely nothing about the world and its amazing innate abilities. Dragons grow up very quickly. The girl wants the blue one to enjoy everything she can before she finally grows up and becomes an adult. She asks the guy to sit next to her. Jay offers his help, to which the girl replies that she didn't think that he understood anything about this complex magic. After which Baum declares that she does have one important request. When she casts the spell, the young man must be with her to ensure maximum stability. Baum explained that the entire process of knowledge transfer could completely deplete her inner strength and lead to a sudden loss of consciousness during the ritual. If she were to suddenly lose consciousness, she might accidentally drop the baby, and having Jay nearby ensures safety. Moreover, this will help the girl to concentrate better, and will relieve her from possible pangs of conscience for an accidental mistake during this magical ritual. The young man reluctantly agrees with the girl and sighs heavily, realizing the full responsibility for the safety of the little creature in his arms. Realizing the seriousness of the situation, Jay moved closer to the girl and sat down next to her. Baum gently touches the young man's shoulder and says in a quiet voice how amazingly hard it really is, as if it were carved from real, strong stone. The guy asks again and wants to know what the girl just said, but the green one quickly brushed it off and complained about the very hard sofa. Baum gently hugged the little dragon, and soon they were both tightly entangled in soft green energy. Several days flew by unnoticed. The sun began to slowly set behind the horizon, illuminating their dorm with its last rays. Baum looked completely exhausted, because the little blue dragon turned out to be incredibly demanding, and did not let her sleep for a single minute. The guy approached her, his gaze filled with understanding, as he acknowledged that the girl had handled this difficult task brilliantly. Barely able to stand on her feet, she headed to her room, and on the way asked the guy to feed the baby, but suddenly her legs gave way. Baum started to fall, but Jay instantly reacted and caught the girl, after which she found herself in his strong and reliable arms. Stunned by such sudden closeness, she did not have time to come to her senses. The guy firmly declared that he himself would carry her to her private room. The girl instantly flushed, feeling like the heroine of a fairy tale who was suddenly given such truly royal and noble honors. Jay only dryly noted that if she still found the strength to joke, then everything wasn't so bad, and continued silently carrying her to the bedroom in his arms. On the way, the girl asked if she was too heavy, and received an answer from the guy that now she felt lighter than a feather. Soon the guy carefully lowered her onto the soft bed, and the exhausted girl instantly fell into a deep and peaceful sleep. Trying not to make any noise, Jay headed towards the bedroom exit and quietly opened the doors. When Jay left the room, he suddenly felt someone's sharp and piercing gaze on him, making him tense up inside. A chill ran down his spine. The boy clearly understood that new and very serious changes were brewing in their lives. A blinding flash of bright light suddenly illuminated the next room, where the little blue dragon had been located all this time. The young man instantly rushed into the room and immediately headed towards the cradle, fearing for the safety of the little creature. To his great surprise, Ghoul took on human form, turning into a tiny and incredibly adorable baby. Ghoul was shaking violently from the cold, and looked at the young man with her huge eyes, full of sincere and childish surprise. Unable to hide his joy, the young man quietly greeted her, realizing the importance of this first magical success. The action shifts to the Logova Regional Police Department, where routine work is in full swing, and the latest breaking news is being discussed. At the entrance to the office, the team leader proudly spoke of Jay's achievements, who single-handedly caught all the dangerous criminals. The group leader noted his elevated mood, and brandishing his bank card, invited all his colleagues to have dinner together at a restaurant. The junior officer immediately teased her superior for trying to throw a lavish banquet using the department's budget money. With this caustic remark, the girl greatly embarrassed her boss, forcing him to awkwardly justify himself to the rest of his colleagues. Jay politely declined the offer, citing important personal matters that required his presence at home. The colleagues were perplexed. The boss reminded that Jay had missed the previous dinner and was now leaving work on the dot. Watching the guy walk away, his colleagues began to actively gossip, assuming that he finally had a girlfriend. A young girl walks energetically along a busy street and happily talks to someone on a video call. Jay notices the girl and begins to slowly approach her, carefully watching her every move. At that very moment, his shadow clone completely copies her appearance, professionally transforming into this young lady. In the past, The great Duke of the Demon World used this unique skill to secretly influence remote provinces. But after Jay defeated the monster and became the new master of this power, he turned the Dark Shadow into his faithful ally. The clone continues on its way to the city park, and after a while stops at the fountain to look around. After which the double notices Jay on the bench, slowly approaches the young man and greets him. After a while, the Black Shadow freezes in complete amazement, seeing a dragon in human form on the guy's knees. Shadow is very surprised and asks the guy what kind of strange creature is now next to him. To this, Jay calmly explained that he had taken the little girl to get a haircut, and they had simply decided to take a little rest in the shade of the trees. The clone was amazed at how quickly her transformation process took place, and an elderly couple passing by looked at them with affection. Having mistaken the clone in female guise for his companion, the old men did not skimp on kind compliments addressed to this young couple. Shadow ignored their words and offered Jay to hold the girl, mistakenly believing that the guy was very tired from the long walk. However, the little blue dragon stared at the clone with a strange and intense gaze, as if trying to understand his true nature and hidden intentions. This scrutinizing gaze further confused the Shadow and left it completely bewildered, causing internal tension and inexplicable anxiety. Shadow sat down on the bench, at which point Jay noticed that the baby was already quite capable of moving independently. The boy carefully lowered her to the ground, and the little girl immediately set off to enthusiastically explore the world around her and the tiny bugs. The clone asked why Jay went out for a walk alone. The guy replied that Bomb remained bedridden due to severe exhaustion after the magical ritual. Jay's memory flashed back to recent scenes of Golden eagerly begging him to go shopping, and Red Dragon rudely brushing her off. Jay sighed heavily and informed the clone that these wayward girls were not yet ready for normal life. The Shadow nodded in understanding in response, and the guy asked what exactly the clone wanted to tell him earlier. The creature hesitated, trying to pretend that nothing important had happened, but the owner immediately put an end to this clumsy pretense. The thoughts and all the emotions of the double were an open book for him, so it was useless to hide the truth from the master. Eventually, Clone admitted that he was plagued by doubts due to the abrupt change in the nature of his daily activities. Previously, all who wielded its power used it only for great and bloody deeds, the elimination of targets and the seizure of power. In contrast to these bloody deeds, the current master, on the contrary, turned out to be completely absorbed in ordinary concerns. This turned out to be beyond the clone's understanding, since he had become accustomed over the centuries to carrying out only terrible and very dangerous missions. There was an unusual sadness in the clone's voice, and he hastened to apologize, afraid of involuntarily angering his master. Jay showed understanding, reminding him that the clone was intelligent and such feelings were natural. Rising from the bench, he promised that soon a truly important mission would be found for the clone. In the meantime, he ordered that he continue to perform his duties as an officer properly, so as not to arouse unnecessary suspicion among the police. He added that his colleagues were upset by his aloofness, so the clone needed to go to a bar with them and have a drink. The guy reminds once again that very soon the Shadow will be finally freed from this boring and routine service. The clone meekly agreed and left. Jay followed him for a long time with his cold and very thoughtful gaze. He understood that he needed to constantly control this creature so that the situation did not suddenly get out of control. A moment later, his attention was drawn to a woman passing by, walking in the park with her little daughter. The mother is delighted by her daughter's high spirits and believes that she should have bought this toy much earlier. Her daughter happily plays with a huge plush panda and beams with a happy smile, while the little blue dragon watches the toy in fascination, unable to look away. Noticing this, Jay asked the little girl if she wanted the same beautiful doll. Using only the tiniest bit of his abyssal power, he instantly pulled the toy out of the parallel space. The boy handed the girl a gift, noting that this blue doll would be truly special and unique for her. The little girl hugged the new toy tightly, frozen for a moment in genuine childish amazement and delight. Ghoul continues to study the huge teddy bear closely, as if expecting it to answer her at any moment. The girl tries to talk to the toy and is genuinely surprised that the plush animal does not respond to her at all. Jay watches this cute scene carefully and asks Blue Dragon if she liked the toy. After a while, Ghoul loses all interest in the doll and very carefully puts it down. She slowly approaches the guy. Jay, puzzled by her actions, picks the girl up in his arms. He asks if she needs any other gifts, adding that his supply of various things is not yet exhausted. With her tiny hands, the girl cups Jay's face and gently touches her head to his. This gesture took the guy by surprise. He remembered that Bomb often slept next to the blue one, touching her exactly like this. Jay suggested that the baby considered the magical transfer to be the highest form of expression of love and strong affection. However, this contact provoked the unexpected, and frightening images from the past flashed before the boy's eyes. On the vast battlefields, he single-handedly and desperately confronted entire flocks of enraged demons. Ghoul, having come into contact with his mind, involuntarily absorbed each of these heavy and very dark memories. The guy begins to think that he should never forget about his truly important and great mission. After all, with the help of numerous regressions, he needs to save all of humanity and not be distracted by extraneous matters. Stunned by what she saw in his memory, the little girl looked confused and frightened by the terrible images of war. Jay picked up the girl in his arms and looked at her for a long time with a hidden tenderness that he always carefully hid behind his usual mask of cold indifference. He carefully took Ghoul's small hand and led her home, like a loving father protecting his daughter during a walk. After a while, the boy suddenly stopped and raised his thoughtful gaze to the darkening skies above them. The sky above the city was quickly covered with a bloody sunset. Jay sighed heavily, clearly realizing that the mysterious guest was already on her way. Soon Gale ran up to them, this cheerful girl happily waving her hand at them. She immediately picked up the baby in her arms and, showering her with affection, noted that she was very happy after the gifts. Jay asked her in bewilderment how she knew about this, and the girl explained their special ability to sense emotions. She added that it was similar to tactile contact, when dragons wanted to sincerely express their feelings. The guy sighs heavily again and declares that he was completely unaware of this important fact before. At this moment, he notices a strange case behind the golden dragon and becomes interested in its contents. The girl proudly shows the guy her brand new guitar, sparkling in the rays of the setting sun. She declares that from now on she intends to express her soul through music. Guile was convinced that she now looked like a real star and promised to rehearse diligently every day. The girl's enthusiasm echoed in the guy's heart with very painful memories from his past life. He clearly remembered how, in another reality, the golden dragon was completely broken and sank to the very bottom. Jay finds himself worrying about the fact that what he fears most in the world is a repetition of this tragedy. Once again, the lost and sad face of the golden dragon from the past regression suddenly appears in his mind. Observing Gale's worn fingers, the boy sternly warned her against being overly zealous in her studies. But the girl insisted that she would never give up her rehearsals and would definitely give it her all. Trying to change the subject, the young man quietly asked his interlocutor about the current health of their friend Bomb. The girl sadly replied that the patient's high fever had not subsided for 2 days. The guy sighed heavily, realizing that this was a consequence of the depletion of mana after the ritual. When the conversation turned to the red dragon, the girl laughingly said that she was literally glued to the screen, captivated by some TV series. This was astonishing, because before the red dragon had been completely uninterested in anything except endless and bloody battles. Jay philosophically noted that this was even for the best, because while Yerim was busy watching dramas, no new troubles could be expected from her. The guy enters the house with the dragons. The girl immediately wants to go and personally check the health of the sick Bomb. However, Jay, as soon as he crossed the threshold, immediately sensed something was wrong. His face instantly became stern and focused. He immediately orders the golden dragon to take the baby and lock himself in his room as quickly as possible. In a quiet voice, the guy says that the girl should under no circumstances go outside without his direct command. Gaiol doesn't feel threatened, so he happily picks up the baby and quickly runs to his cozy room. Jay approaches the door of the green dragon's room and clearly senses the presence of a foreign and extremely powerful energy there. As soon as the girls were out of sight, Jay jerked open the green dragon's bedroom door. Inside the premises, he found several uninvited guests who clearly had no intention of leaving the house. The creatures in powerful metal armor turned out to be guards of the Dragon Clan, who had arrived here for some important purpose. One of them, his eyes flashing with rage, accused Jay of being the one to blame for Green's condition. Dragons use domination magic to keep certain useful monsters and even humans on a permanent leash. The true nature of the Guardians is very tragic, for they are simultaneously loyal knights and powerless slaves of the dragons. Among them were select warriors endowed with exceptional strength, who served as bodyguards for the young dragons. Jay looked at the uninvited guests again, after which he saw the sleeping Green and realized that the guards were using sleep magic. One of the guards again demands an answer as to whether Jay is to blame for the grave condition the green dragon is currently in. The guy calmly remarked that the guests should have introduced themselves first, before brazenly barging into someone else's private home. In response, the air in the room vibrated with a powerful surge of mana, and the Guardian, blinded by pride, declared that Jay did not understand the risk. In his opinion, the right to ask questions is a privilege of the strong, which means that only he can interrogate anyone in this world. Jay doesn't show a trace of fear, although he admits that his opponent's magical mana does look impressive. The guard continues to put pressure and loudly declares that this is the guy's last chance to justify himself. The knight continues to raise his voice at the guy and demands that the man answer what exactly he did to their Lady Green. Jay calmly explained the situation. The newborn ghoul received her powers through an ancient magical transmission of knowledge. The green dragon had depleted her reserves, which caused her to become temporarily unwell and develop this severe fever. Then the guardian demanded that the boy confess who he was, and when Jay identified himself as the guardian, mocking laughter rang out in the room. The guards considered his words to be complete nonsense, stating that the man clearly did not understand under whose protection creatures of his rank were. But Jay, whose gaze had become even more penetrating, replied that he understood everything too well, and asked why the guards had arrived so early. According to his calculations, at this time they should have been far from here, scattered across the vast expanses of the spatial rift. Jay's deep knowledge greatly confused the guards, and realizing that this was no ordinary man, they drew their weapons. The uninvited guests officially introduced themselves as protectors of the dragon children, and faithful guardians of all existing cause and effect relationships. While they acknowledged Jay's efforts to care for the young dragons, their verdict was harsh. This suspicious individual posed a serious threat. In their opinion, mercy in this case would only sow the seeds of future troubles, and therefore the extra witness should be eliminated immediately. The boy made a last attempt to settle things peacefully, offering to resolve the issue through conversation, but the guards completely ignored his call. The knights surround the young man and sarcastically declare that he need not be afraid, as they will make everything as painless as possible. The nearest guard raises his sword for the killing blow, his body instantly engulfed in a bright purple aura of battle magic. Jay defended himself with frightening agility, demonstrating to his opponents his superior close combat technique and incredible reaction speed. Using his shapeless blade, he blocked all the attacks with ease, and one of the attackers fell to the floor in an instant. Another guardian shouted a loud warning to his partner, urging him to be extremely careful in this fight. The guards ask their wounded comrade to stand aside for a while and just watch as they quickly finish off this impudent man. The guardian, thrown aside, asks them to take their time, as this enemy turned out to be much stronger than they initially expected. The knights tried to squeeze the young man in a tight vice and strike him with a fatal blow from both sides at the same time. But the outcome was predetermined. With one lightning-fast movement, Jay scattered the entire squad. The warrior froze in place, finally realizing that this man's strength exceeded all conceivable limits. A primal fear instantly settled in his soul as he sensed something in Jay that was far beyond human comprehension. Only a truly transcendental being could inspire such awe in professional warriors. An ordinary person could hardly know so much about the existence of guardians, and so confidently watch over young dragons. Jay calmly approached Warrior, insisting that their important conversation was not over yet. The stunned guard asked in horror whether his powerful opponent was the true ruler of this world. But Jay completely ignored this question, only reminding that he had initially suggested that they talk peacefully. He was, first of all, keenly interested in how exactly the guards were able to overcome the spatial barriers so easily. Such interdimensional travel has always presented a colossal challenge, even for the most powerful beings. The warrior explained that the main culprit was a sudden and large-scale distortion of dimensions. Their master opened a passage connecting the nest with the human world, but the path unexpectedly curved and literally threw them out at this point. When Jay asked for more precise clarification about this phenomenon, the guard admitted that he did not have all the information. He only remembered his master's words about some mysterious horizon of providence that caused the anomaly. It was the colossal power emanating from there that served as the main cause of the anomaly that deformed the surrounding space. Jay felt a growing sense of alarm, as in all his past lives he had never heard of such distortions. The current regression was becoming increasingly different from his previous experience, including the unexpected appearance of a new protector. Trying to get to the bottom of it, Jay asked how exactly this horizon was connected to their arrival and crossing the boundaries of worlds. The Guardian revealed the terrifying truth, explaining that they were being guided at that moment by some alien will on the other side of the horizon. This unknown force guided their path, invisibly helping the guards to gather together and act without the slightest error. He also admitted that it was she who allowed them to accurately calculate the exact current location of the young dragons. Jay gave the guard a hard look and stated that he needed to personally check something right now. The young man slowly approaches the knight and confidently places his hand on his metal helmet. The boy orders the guard to remain still and look him straight in the eyes to begin a deep examination of his consciousness. It activates the balance gaze, which is one of the Grand Duke's 3 unique abilities. This magical skill allows one to accurately recognize good and evil, truth and lies, as well as true affection or aversion. The ability confirmed that the defeated guard was not lying, and this finally dispelled the last doubts about the veracity of his words. For Jay, who had once eliminated every conceivable threat to the world and explored countless dimensions, this was a wake-up call. Despite all his past achievements, dangerous anomalies continued to arise one after another, creating the feeling that the situation was getting out of control. It seemed that reality itself had ceased to obey its usual laws, and the world began to slowly collapse from within. With a sharp and unexpected movement, Jay grabbed the warrior by the chest, causing him severe and piercing physical pain. The guard added that the will beyond the horizon was filled with malice and hostility, as if it were spewing curses at everything in the world. He theorized that this reaction was directly related to the core formed from the Green Dragon's power within Jay himself. This thought sounded especially alarming, because the source and nature of such interference remained completely unknown to him. At that moment, he discovered a strange magical clock within the enemy's essence, hidden from any normal perception. This mysterious power defined as its enemies any elements that were outside the standard timeline or had their own unique flow of time. She always acted ruthlessly and relentlessly, tracking down such anomalies regardless of the vast distances and dimensions separating them. The Guardian explained that this force usually showed activity only during moments of regression and serious temporal disruptions. However, now she has begun to directly interfere with what is happening, grossly disrupting the usual order of events in this reality. Jay realized that at this point he was powerless to change anything, and all he could do was wait for this dangerous situation to develop further. The guy rudely declares to the guards that in any case he considers their conversation completely over. Jay asked about their future plans, reminding them that he had already taken on the responsibility of looking after the dragons. Furthermore, the subjugation magic bound to the dragons was most likely completely destroyed by the recent spatial distortions. The guards asked incredulously if he would really let them go, to which Jay made it clear that he had no complaints. Having received the young man's assurance, the guards agreed to leave the house, but one of them flatly refused to leave, declaring that protecting the dragons was his sacred duty. The knight stated that he was the keeper of the history of cause and effect, and could not abandon his post. Jay instantly dealt him a powerful blow, which with great force threw the stubborn guard far to the side. The young man steps on his fallen opponent and asks him one more time, giving him one last chance to retreat. Despite the real threat to his life, the knight once again firmly repeats that he categorically refuses to leave and abandon his post. An aggressive, bright red aura flares around Jay, and he delivers another powerful energy blow to the stubborn guard. The boy asks again if the knight will leave, and warns that this time his offer will truly be his last. Jay is greatly surprised that this battered warrior, even on the brink of death, continues to desperately cling to his elusive goal. Experiencing unbearable pain, the Guardian quietly declares that he simply cannot act contrary to his inner convictions. The other guards called their comrade a fool and a stubborn man, telling the boy that he would not listen to him even under threat of death. The knights consider him a madman for such stubbornness, because he does not want to gain freedom when it is right in front of him. When Jay asks if his family has always been so fanatical in their tenacity, the surviving guards answer in the affirmative. A dark aura flares up around the guy, and he comes to the conclusion that this knight is worthy of being a true guardian. Summoning his legendary blade from the dark space, Jay executed all the warriors present in the room without the slightest hesitation. He saved the life of only one intractable guard who, perplexed, asks about the reasons for such a decision. The young man replied that he had quickly discerned something truly unusual in this guard. Jay asks why he is so passionate about protecting the Green Dragon, to which the knight replies about his undying loyalty to the clan. Jay recognized the creature's devotion, but reminded him that the Green Dragon was now under his personal and absolute protection. The Guardian wondered how he could be of any use to the lady, being considerably weaker than this mysterious and frightening man. But Jay quickly found a suitable occupation for him. Jay brings the guard to the surprised girls and asks them to say hello to the new member of their unusual family. The guy tells the girls that from today he has hired them a personal and very efficient professional butler. This statement greatly surprised the guard himself, but he understood the seriousness of the situation and chose to remain completely silent. The newly appointed butler immediately set about his new duties. beginning with a thorough washing of the accumulated dishes. While he was busy with his household chores, he never for a moment forgot about the stern warning that this frightening guy had given him yesterday. Yesterday, he directly asked the young man how exactly the role of a simple butler could be connected with the protection of great dragons. Jay reminded that he had already said earlier that his presence alone was enough to provide absolute protection to all dragons. He retreated from his original principles, giving the guard one chance, and warned that if the knight did not want to be a butler, the boy would destroy him. The guard continues to silently wash the dishes and thinks bitterly about how he ended up in such a strange life. While the warrior was fiddling around at the sink, he was completely focused on his work, and did not immediately notice that someone had approached him from behind. Bomb quietly approached him, and he instantly felt her soft presence next to him, causing him to shudder internally. She immediately recognized him as an elite guard from Ascalepa. Looking closely at his face and his usual knightly demeanor, Bomb assured him that she was already feeling quite well after her recent illness and was no longer worried about anything. She then confirmed his new appointment as being responsible for the cleanliness of the house, and asked him to always work hard. With a slight smile, Bomb added that the pink apron suited him very well and looked surprisingly appropriate on him even over his armor. From intense embarrassment and sudden delight, the guard blushed deeply and mentally swore never to cause his mistress any inconvenience. However, in a fit of emotion, he awkwardly touched the dishes and accidentally dropped a porcelain plate, which smashed on the floor with a loud crash. Bomb only noted with slight sadness that this thing was really expensive, and there was no way to save it. Soon the house was filled with the usual bustle. Gael arranged a fun photo shoot for Ghoul, enthusiastically dressing her in charming dresses. After the overalls, it was the turn of the elegant school uniform, which looked very cute on the child. Gael, delighted by what she saw, asked when her friend had managed to prepare all these outfits, to which the green dragon explained that she had placed the order as soon as she felt better. When Gael asked the guard's opinion about the baby's outfits, he reverently replied that any clothes would look impeccable on such a beauty. This answer left the girl completely delighted, and she tells the knight that he really knows how to choose the right words. Jay watches this dialogue with obvious tension, and is a little nervous about what is happening, but still remains silent. Jay, noticing Gael's reddened fingers, gently but firmly warned her against practicing too long and exhaustingly on the new guitar. However, Bomb immediately stood up for the girl, calmly explaining that she really enjoyed playing and that it brought her genuine joy. She also asked Jay not to be too strict and to give Gael the opportunity to do what is truly dear to her now. The guy objected and said that it was solely out of genuine concern for her health, and he did not want her to accidentally harm herself. Along the way, Jay noted that Red was acting strangely and had been staying in her private room for too long. These words caused a lot of tension in everyone, because such seclusion was not at all normal for her. The guard confirmed Jay's fears, complaining that when he tried to clean up Yerem's mess, she angrily threw him out the door. Entering Yerem's room, Jay immediately discovered real chaos there, which was in sharp contrast to the usual order in the house. Empty beer bottles and numerous cigarette butts were scattered everywhere, creating a feeling of neglect and complete disarray. The girl herself was completely absorbed in watching another drama, and seemed completely unaware of what was happening around her. Looking at the screen, the young man asked the girl in bewilderment if she was actually watching this strange series. Red Dragon said that she is already watching the 7th season, although the historical accuracy in it is very shameful and low. Jay doesn't understand this and says that if she doesn't like the series so much, then the girl can just not watch it. The Red Dragon continues to stare at the monitor and calls the young man Captain Obvious. After giving her a serious reprimand, Jay ordered everyone to gather in the living room immediately, as he had one very important announcement. Once everyone had gathered, Jay announced that they were all in for a spring cleaning. To their puzzled questions, he explained that, despite the fact that they were dragons, they needed to adhere to human standards in order to live on Earth. He particularly emphasized that Yerem and Gael's rooms had turned into a real dump and needed immediate cleaning. Gael suddenly burst into tears, remembering her mother's instructions about not entering someone else's premises without asking. Jay countered this by asking if her mother hadn't taught her how to maintain basic order in her own home. Red responded by merely expressing her displeasure by unceremoniously picking her nose, which caused Gael to feel a surge of disgust. The situation became even worse when Yerem jokingly threw the contents towards Gael, causing her to burst into tears of hurt. After this, Yerem arrogantly called the guard a runt and ordered him to immediately take care of her room. The girl stated that they now have a butler, and she does not intend to clean the room herself. She calls the guard a pile of metal once again, and orders him to immediately clean up her personal room. Bomb stated that her quarters were already clean, so she would go get groceries to cook dinner. The girl happily announces that they have more mouths to feed, and that she will cook something really tasty today. Upon hearing Bomb's cooking plans, Jay literally froze in place, shuddering as he recalled the terrible food she had served him the first time. When she noticed his strange face and asked what was wrong, Jay hastened to assure her that everything was fine. Returning to duty, the guard donned a protective mask before entering Yerim's room to restore order. He immediately came across an ashtray, which he mistook for some kind of outlandish flower pot. The guard thinks that the smell here is like in the demon world or even worse, and thinks about the girl's poor health due to bad habits. As soon as he started working, a shadow clone of Jay suddenly appeared and began giving him detailed instructions on the rules of perfect cleaning. The clone began to command that the garbage needed to be strictly sorted, separating tin cans from glass. Ordinary people may not notice this, but the Guardian clearly feels the ominous energy of the demonic world emanating from him. The clone continues to be insolent and rudely asks why the guard stopped, asking if he really intended to spend the whole day here. The knight believes that there is no need to argue unnecessarily, and silently obeys all the instructions received from the double. At that moment, the real Jay enters the room, orders them both to leave, and wonders what the two are doing there. The shadow clone replies that he only gave the slow butler some advice because he was doing a bad job. However, Jay doesn't like these explanations and orders the clone to personally participate in the process, since the guard has already been cleaning up the mess all day. Meanwhile, in another part of the house, the Red Dragon was training hard, trying to maintain her fighting form. Bomb, as promised, went shopping and spent almost her entire day there. Zolotaya diligently tidied up her room, and with great difficulty finally placed all the scattered things into the closet. The guard and the shadow clone worked side by side to clean the entire room until it sparkled, trying to please their demanding master. The whole day passed unnoticed in these worries, and the last rays of the setting sun brightly illuminated the building of their dormitory. Later, the shadow clone informed Jay that the work in the Red Dragon room was completely completed. He replied that there would be a new task for the clone, for which he would have to go to a very distant and cold place. Jay shows a map on his computer and explains that the target will be the Russian capital, Moscow. There is a demonic organization based there called Invisibility, which studies dangerous transcendental techniques. Jay orders all current police matters to be completed within a week, after which he is to immediately leave for Russia. He demanded that the Shadow track down the command-type mage known by the codename Prototype X and pinpoint his location. The Shadow clone calmly and without further ado accepted the order for execution, immediately beginning preparations for the assigned task. The Green Dragon soon returned, her appearance immediately attracting the attention of everyone present. Zolotaya was genuinely amazed by the huge number of heavy bags she had dragged from the store, clearly exceeding her usual purchases. Bomb explained that their family is gradually growing, so they now need much more food supplies than before. The Shadow clone, noticing the girl's return to the house, was about to immediately leave for his business, but Jay stopped him and ordered him to change clothes for a while in order to carry out his cunning plan. When Bomb served her hopelessly ruined dinner again, the entire household began to eat it with noticeable appetite. Jay, who absolutely couldn't stand her cooking and knew it in advance, didn't want to draw any extra attention to himself at the table. Instead, he resorted to a ruse, subtly planting a shadow clone, which allowed Jay to avoid the unpleasant tasting and maintain the appearance of participating in the family dinner. The action moves to a closed industrial zone, located very close to the lair. This entire eerie area is littered with numerous corpses and body parts of the dead. In utter despair, the last surviving man suddenly pounced on Jay, furiously shouting threats and accusing the pathetic man of daring to cross the dangerous line. He shouted that Jay would bitterly regret what he had done as soon as he found out who was really behind him. There was hysterical anger in his voice, mixed with deep fear, which he could no longer hide even behind such loud words. With a powerful and precise strike of his blade, Jay instantly stopped the attacker, depriving him of the opportunity to continue this senseless attack. In an icy, completely emotionless tone, he said that he already knew everything, and there were no secrets left here for a long time. Jay has stated outright that Professor Blue Dragon is actually a dangerous demon from the secret organization Invisibility. Realizing that the professor was up to something truly large-scale and sinister, Jay activated his magical gaze of balance without hesitation. The demon admitted that he knew very little, and had only scraps of information about his leadership's upcoming plan. He announced that in 3 months the professor, if the plan is successfully implemented, will take the post of the so-called Chosen One. Jay immediately realized that this was one of the 4 places that were the highest positions for the elite demons of the Invisibility Organization. These positions gave their few holders incomparably greater status and influence than all ordinary members of the organization. While ordinary demons acted in a disorganized manner, the lords of these places commanded their own legions of devoted followers. In addition to their immense power, they also attained the rank of a higher demon, reaching the terrifying level of power of the catastrophe class. To Jay, this looked extremely suspicious, and was not at all consistent with what he clearly knew from his past regression cycles. The professor had never held such a high position before, and at this stage he certainly did not have enough power for such plans. At that very moment, the regression clock recorded a powerful surge of pure malice, emanating from somewhere beyond the horizon of providence. The mechanism immediately began an automatic search for the entity that had disrupted the important cause and effect relationships of this fragile world. The clock marked the demon as a target, recording the direct intervention of an entity outside the time stream, hostile to the very idea of regression. Jay wondered why both the guards and the professor were affected by this, and if it was directly related to himself. The demon desperately begged the young man for mercy, claiming that he could be a truly good and useful informant. After which he began to talk about his sick mother. But Jay cold-bloodedly and without hesitation ended his worthless life. The guy noted that such an end to the journey would be the only possible salvation for this terrible creature. Jay states that he gave him a fair warning that if the demon was lying, he would definitely die on the spot. However, the bitter truth was that even if the demon had spoken the pure truth, he would still have died in the end. The young man snaps his fingers, setting into motion the powerful and hidden mechanisms of his parallel world. The huge room is instantly plunged into a thick, dark shadow, after which an irreversible process of total destruction begins. If the professor's plan is significant enough to guarantee him the status of the chosen one, then he has something big planned against the lair. He remembers the professor asking the Red Dragon to represent their school, especially at the last big event of the year. Over and over again, the boy plays this key phrase over and over in his head, trying to find a hidden and dangerous meaning in it. He comes to the conclusion that this last event of the year is somehow closely and inextricably linked with the enemy's insidious plan. His thoughts were suddenly interrupted by two girls who were looking at the blue dragon with admiration and calling her out loud an incredible cutie. They immediately asked Baum the name of this wonderful child, wanting to know as much as possible about little Ghoul. When Jay came closer and sternly asked if they needed anything from his daughter, the girls immediately became very scared. They hurried away as quickly as possible, leaving behind only the light sound of their footsteps and a clear feeling of awkwardness from meeting him. Baum tried to start a conversation by asking the guy where he had been all day. The green dragon cast a very kind and welcoming glance at the young man, sincerely trying to maintain an atmosphere of friendliness. However, Jay did not reciprocate her feelings, remaining extremely focused on his own thoughts and current affairs. He was not distracted and watched what was happening carefully, as if pondering the important events that were beginning to unfold around them. Jay approached Baum and asked her what exactly she was doing there, and why she had decided to stay for so long. Baum explained that school started the next day, and she genuinely wanted to spend more time with the little one before the long hours of studying. She smiled softly and jokingly added that from the outside they now look like a real family. According to her, the blue dragon is their daughter, she is the mother, and Jay is the strict father. Jay looked at her seriously, not expecting such comparisons and such playful humor. Baum laughed at his violent reaction and immediately assured him that it was just a joke and not to be taken seriously. He advised Baum to keep such jokes exclusively to the home, so as not to embarrass those present on the street with his behavior. The green dragon smiles happily back, and it seems like she is thoroughly enjoying this carefree time with him. The long-awaited morning of the next day arrives, when numerous schoolchildren in an organized manner head to the Lair Academy for their classes. In front of the school entrance, there is a spacious alley along which cherry trees bloom profusely and softly shower her with petals. The golden dragon literally beams with joy and loudly repeats that this festive day has finally arrived. Baum asks his sister what classes she has chosen and expresses hope that they will take the same classes. After which the green dragon asks the girl why she always has a piece of toast in her mouth. The girl seemed to have already had breakfast at home, and this seemed strange, to which Gale responded with a smile to his little sister. She says her mother always advised that if you bump into someone with a piece of toast in their mouth, you could meet your destiny. However, instead of the handsome prince, Gale crashes at full speed into the red dragon, who was standing in her way. Gaio looks up at her little sister in surprise, and watches her unpredictable reaction with apprehension. As expected, Yerem starts to be sarcastic and declares that the most a girl can do is knock down a random passerby, but not find a prince. After this, Red smiled mysteriously and jokingly offered the girl to become her betrothed, but the golden dragon indignantly objected, reminding her that she was, in fact, also a girl. Red simply waved it off, citing modern American TV series, and advised Gayol to educate herself on the topic of same-sex love. After which the red dragon began to loudly complain about the absence of this old man, because Jay promised that he would definitely come to their class meeting. Red Dragon says that Jay hasn't been home since yesterday and suggests out loud that he might be secretly dating some woman. This thought caused Bomb to panic, and she began to passionately prove to everyone that Jay was not at all one of those people. Their conversation was suddenly interrupted by the noise of a crowd of reporters. The girls initially mistakenly thought that the press had gathered there for the famous first-year students. However, all cameras and microphones suddenly turned towards the Red Dragon. Journalists immediately recognized her as Cadet Yarim, the same troublemaker who destroyed Sophia and made a very harsh statement. Reporters believed that they must, by any means necessary, obtain an exclusive interview from this extremely scandalous person. The Red Dragon realizes that things are bad and begins to swear out of frustration. Reporters surrounded her from all sides, shouting questions and demanding immediate explanations. The Golden Dragon hid behind her friend in fear, trying not to attract attention. Yarim tried to say something, but the noise and provocative questions from journalists only grew. The Red Dragon could not stand it any longer, and in rage she screamed loudly throughout the alley, ordering everyone to shut up immediately. She called the reporters trash, and rudely stated that her previous response was quite sufficient. The girl is determined and seems to be going to deal with each of them individually. Meanwhile, the action moves to the dormitory, where the Guardian was trying to keep an eye on the little blue dragon. He had no idea how to properly handle small children. The guard caught himself thinking that he was now terribly uncomfortable in this new role. The knight remembers Jay's parting words as he was leaving. The guy said that everyone else would be at school, and he himself would not be home either. At the threshold, Jay turned around, looked sternly at the Guardian, and said that he would be left alone with the baby. Jay demanded that he take full responsibility for the little girl in his absence. The knight couldn't even imagine that he would be given a task much more difficult than cleaning, because he had never looked after children before. He quietly approaches the little girl and politely calls Ghoul Little Miss, trying to show her as much respect as possible. After which the Guardian begins to tell her that everyone will only come home in the evening, and suggests that she rest in a more comfortable place. The girl doesn't react at all to his kind words, and continues to sit at the threshold, patiently waiting for the arrival of Jay and her beloved sisters. The Guardian feels a strong sense of awkwardness from this situation, and even his cold steel armor gradually becomes covered in sweat from intense excitement. With the sad thought that he was completely incapable of communicating with children, the disheartened warrior decided to return to his usual cleaning for a while. Entering the room, the knight unexpectedly saw a small book on the floor among scattered toys, which attracted his close attention. Picking her up from the floor, he slowly walked back to the little girl, who was still sitting motionless by the closed front doors, waiting for her owners. After which the knight offered to read this book with bright pictures to the blue dragon, hoping to somehow brighten up her long and tedious wait. He begins to make another desperate attempt to somehow interest the little girl and distract her from her sad thoughts. Ghoul was truly interested in this idea. The Guardian immediately felt relieved, sincerely glad that she liked the pictures in this book. Since the girl could not yet read on her own, the Guardian suggested telling her this story called My Dad is a Fairy. The knight begins to read about how, long ago, in the thickest part of the forest, there stood a small house where amazing and fabulous events took place. Suddenly, it occurs to him that if we are talking about a forest from the past, then this is definitely a primeval forest before the beginning of the bloody era of demons. Having thrown these spontaneously arising thoughts out of his head, the Guardian continues to tell how in that very place lived a little girl and her kind father. Suddenly, the guard begins to think that their mother died a harsh and terrible death, but the girl was still lucky to survive. Before going to bed, her father always told her different stories about the past, trying to pass on to the child all his accumulated knowledge about the world. Here in his head thoughts arise that the stories of the past of those distant times should be exclusively about the Great War and battles. The knight makes the dark assumption that her father is most likely a military fanatic who is obsessed only with battles and the glory of arms. The story continues, and the Guardian tells how one morning the daughter woke up and realized with horror that her father was no longer in their house. He suggests that, most likely, the father went in search of a new mother, since in that era, female prisoners of war were often taken as concubines. The guard makes the assumption that the girl should be happy, since she will soon have a new mother, and their family will again become complete and strong. The knight continues to retell the tale, mixing it with his strange thoughts. And the blue dragon continues to listen to him silently and attentively. After a while, the guardian notices that something is clearly wrong with the child, and pauses his reading to carefully watch the girl's reaction. He asks Ghoul if she doesn't like this story, because the girl has clearly lost interest and is now persistently pointing her hand to the side. The knight can't figure out what exactly the child wants, while Ghoul continues to confidently point his little hand towards the blank wall. Again and again, the guardian wonders about the reason for such strange behavior, because the girl persistently points to a completely empty space in the room. Feeling completely rejected, the guardian obediently fell silent and sat down to the side in the far corner, trying not to disturb the child anymore. After this, Ghoul continued to study the book with bright pictures, all alone, enthusiastically, turning the pages with her tiny hands. Meanwhile, at school, Bomb couldn't concentrate on her lessons because her thoughts were completely consumed by the question of Jay's secret girlfriend. At this time, a very expensive car pulled up to the educational institution, which immediately attracted the attention of all the students nearby. The heiress of the Gon clan, one of the 3 great and most respected families of skilled swordsmen, slowly steps out of the car. At this stage in her life, she was much more concerned with quality skincare than grueling training with a heavy sword on the parade ground. The girl begins to loudly complain that she sweats a lot during class, and this circumstance greatly spoils her flawless makeup. She quickly touched up her makeup and ordered her secretary to immediately disperse the insolent reporters who had gathered near the entrance to the academy. However, the secretary, knowing full well about the lady's dislike of excessive publicity, reported that the press had not come for her today. After pushing aside numerous reporters, Gon finally saw who exactly was the real target of all those annoying and noisy journalists. The girl looks closely at the Red Dragon, who is lazily giving an interview, and immediately notices her rare and exceptional beauty. Yerim settled herself down right on one of the guys who had volunteered to serve as her living chair, and felt at ease. Guile timidly said that the guy might be uncomfortable, but Yerim assured her that this was what the fan really wanted. The reporters continued to bombard Yerim with difficult questions one after another, but she quickly became bored and lost her joy. The girl turned her attention to one of them, but he took too long to introduce himself, which is why Yerim interrupted him right in the middle of his sentence. The poor man was very upset by such a harsh attitude, and did not even have time to ask his prepared question. The next question was about how the girl felt about becoming the main topic in the world of superhumans. But Yerim showed indifference and demanded that the journalist ask a new question. A question is heard asking if the girl wants to convey anything to her fans, to which Yerim again rudely replies that the next journalist should come. A rather heavy-set and strange reporter suddenly reminded Yerim of the old scandalous statement about her entering the Blue Dragon Academy just for the sake of romance. Yerim tried to awkwardly laugh it off and quickly dropped the subject, but the persistent man continued to press her, demanding an immediate explanation of the true meaning of those words. The impudent journalist would not let up and directly put forward the bold assumption that the young girl had some other, secret and hidden intentions from the very beginning. This persistence only further inflamed the overall atmosphere, attracting unnecessary attention from the crowd and causing Yerim considerable irritation. The Red Dragon licked her lips predatorily and with an extremely dangerous grin, asked him directly if he would personally like to do with her right now exactly what he was so zealously talking about. The man hesitantly replies that it's probably a joke, but the girl immediately states that if it's humor, then why does he continue to cling so zealously to her previous words? The journalist arrogantly tells the girl that she is too young and inexperienced, and that is precisely why professional reporters are now so actively pursuing her. He asks for a detailed explanation and asks the next question, but the Red Dragon suddenly grabs the insolent man by the collar of his shirt. The girl is seething with rage, but the man continues to film her coldly, unafraid of her aggressive behavior. He smiles happily and asks her to show even more open aggression, because scandalous content will increase views. After a while, the journalist declares that the girl is a little disappointing to him, and says out loud that he should have provoked her much more. The journalist declares that very soon he will write a high-profile article, where the focus will be on a student who persistently demands relationships with reporters. The Red Dragon finally explodes in rage. The girl loudly declares that she will kill him on the spot before he dares to publish anything online. Yerim raises her fist for a crushing blow, but before she can reach her target, someone suddenly intercepts her arm in midair. Gale's eyes widen in surprise as Jay suddenly appears nearby, intervening in the brewing conflict. The Red Dragon tries to break free from his tight grip by force, but their levels are too different, and she is unable to do so, as she is much weaker. Jay gives the girl a cold look and sternly asks if she is intentionally causing serious trouble for the people around her again. The red dragon begins to angrily shout that this is not true at all, and that this impudent and unprincipled pig is solely to blame for everything that happened. The guy unceremoniously throws the girl over his shoulder, while she desperately tries to break free and loudly demands to be put back on the ground immediately. Jay turns to the reporters and gives them a hard look before declaring authoritatively that there must be no article about this incident. Numerous reporters suddenly freeze in stupor, completely overwhelmed by the incredible power of his intimidating aura. A powerful wave of energy quickly engulfs the space and makes the bulky body of the impudent fat man tremble with horror. The red dragon instantly calms down, amazed at how devastating her patron's power is. Jay remains calm and begins to rush the golden dragon, reminding her that she risks being late for her first day of school. Young people watching this scene from afar talk quietly among themselves, and the man notices that the stranger's aura was incredibly intense. However, his partner is distracted by something else, and does not hide her surprise, quietly commenting on the size of the golden dragon's chest. The action moves to a spacious classroom, where Yerim begins his first classes. The professor begins a lecture on the history of fencing, which Yerim finds deadly boring and completely useless. Jay is genuinely surprised that she hasn't stormed out of the office screaming about how unbearable and empty the process is. The red dragon decides to endure the boring task, containing his irritation and trying not to show it to others. She still needs to defeat the Night Hunter at any cost, and Jay's presence in the classroom only increases her anger. When she asks why he went to study with her, Jay replies that she already knows the real reason. She tried to assure him that she had no intention of causing any trouble, but he dryly reminded her that she had just nearly killed an insolent journalist. The girl leaned towards him and said that anyone in her place would have lost their temper at the journalist's provocations. Jay told her to move away immediately, because the audience was getting too hot from such unexpected and close contact. Yerim smiled slyly, grabbed his hand tightly and teased him, wondering why guys go crazy from such closeness. She asked sarcastically if he was embarrassed by her provocative behavior, hoping to notice signs of concern on his face. Jay showed no reaction, making her wonder if he had forgotten that she was only 15. She called him an incorrigible bore, to which he calmly replied that studying was not at all supposed to be fun or interesting. Yerim sarcastically clarified that she had not meant boring lectures at all, since she considered him, her sullen kidnapper, to be the real bore. Jay reasonably countered that their crazy adventures on the way to school were enough to provide a thrill. However, the girl dismissively waved it off, calling the morning scuffle with the press an empty and insignificant trifle. In her mind, the taste of life consisted only in fierce battles, killing enemies, and the thrill of victory. While the other cadets were writing down theory, Yerim dreamed of the ringing of steel and a real battle, where there was no place for mortal boredom. At that moment, hearing the extra noise, the professor slowly approached the girl and, with a smile, asked what his new student was so worried about today. A sly smile suddenly appears on the professor's face, and he confidently declares that they have a good solution for such special cases at the academy. After this, the teacher sternly declares that the girl will now definitely stay after class with her silent escort. The red dragon struggles to contain his growing irritation and reluctantly begins to tidy up his heavy training equipment. She can't contain her rage, and the longer she thinks about the situation, the harder it becomes for her. Angrily, the red dragon throws the training sword on the floor and shouts why she has to polish an old weapon. Then the girl asks with displeasure if it would be possible to call their house cleaner and make him do all the work. Jay remains completely calm and only asks the girl who will look after their small and defenseless blue dragon in this case. Trying to somehow keep the conversation going, the girl asks Jay if he studied himself, to which the guy honestly replies that at the time he didn't have time for it. Red starts laughing loudly, declaring that the guy is a complete disappointment, and the words about not having enough time to study are just an excuse. However, Jay resolutely replies that they were in the midst of a bloody war back then, and he was too busy trying to survive at any cost. Yerim believes that the young man is openly mocking her, and is deliberately engaging in these boring, endless, and completely useless moralizing. Taking a cigarette out of the pack, the girl asks the guy if there is even a tiny drop of real, sincere, and pure fun in his monotonous life. Jay gives the red dragon his usual heavy look, and laconically replies that no. Nothing like this has ever happened in his harsh everyday life. Yerim is convinced that Jay's life is devoid of color, because if she had such power, her existence would be bright and exciting. She wonders if having immense power makes the world boring, but Jay replies that life goes on and he's not going to give up. Yerem called his words emotional nonsense. The guy told her to stop chatting and wipe the swords more diligently. A quiet evening falls, and the residential area of the lair gradually plunges into thick darkness. While Baum was enthusiastically playing with the baby, the Red Dragon was concentrating on solving the Rubik's Cube, completely immersed in this difficult task. At the same time, their faithful guard was routinely restoring order nearby, trying not to disturb the girls unnecessarily with his quiet and measured movements. Suddenly, Yerem threw the toy at the poor guy, and angrily complained that his constant flickering was preventing her from concentrating on the task. The guard immediately began to humbly apologize to her, sincerely trying not to provoke this extremely hot-tempered girl into a new round of aggression. Baum sympathetically asked if the annoying reporters at the school had spoiled Yerem's mood, but she simply replied that she was bored to death. A moment later, the Red Dragon suddenly addressed her friend by name, causing everyone in the room to become wary. Baum was so shocked by this rare gesture that she jokingly asked if she was sick since she was behaving so unusually. Yerem immediately snapped back, rudely declaring that any human name had absolutely no meaning to her. Yerem asked Baum a philosophical question about why she really continues to live in this vast and incomprehensible world. Baum laughingly told the little girl that their older sister was clearly going through puberty, which only angered the hot-tempered Yerem even more. The girl remembered a recent conversation with Jay, and his strange words about life just going on as usual. Yerem firmly stated that this guy had absolutely no idea of the taste of real life that she was so eager for. In her opinion, people live only for fleeting pleasures, and without access to this feeling, existence itself instantly loses all common sense. She compared this state to the golden dragon, a yellow monkey that only needs a hearty meal or a little play to be completely happy. After which the Red Dragon turned her attention to the blue baby, because the girl seems absolutely happy, just playing with some shabby teddy bear. Baum suggested that Jay probably has something important in his life that he's just not ready to share openly yet. Yerem only sarcastically remarked that they were surprisingly similar, both secretive, cold, and sometimes unbearably boring. When Baum asked if this was true, the Red Dragon countered with a question about whether there was even a grain of true joy in her dull life. Baum sincerely confirmed that such joy exists, and this awareness makes her feel truly alive. Following this, she confidently stated that the gentleman was in fact a surprisingly modest and profound person. The Red Dragon stated that her friend was talking complete nonsense, because this guy was nothing but a ruthless and completely emotionless psychopath. Baum smiled shyly and countered that Jay had a very sweet side, well hidden from prying eyes. She admitted that at first she also doubted the sincerity of his actions. However, over time, Baum noticed that he sometimes reacted surprisingly warmly to the most ordinary things. Yerem asked suspiciously about the strange smile that had just appeared on the girl's face, and this question clearly caught her off guard. The Red Dragon immediately began tickling her, loudly accusing her friend of secretly having affairs behind their backs with this stern guy. The room became noisy. Baum tried to fight off the attacks, continuing to smile to herself. Gale suddenly appeared and reported about Yerem's fans in the online community. However, seeing Yerem riding Baum, the girl became very embarrassed and began to quietly back away from the room, feeling like an outsider. Gayol clearly misinterpreted what she saw, which immediately created an extremely awkward and quite comical situation in the living room. Yerem screamed after her in rage, demanding an immediate explanation of what indecent thing she had managed to imagine in her little head. The Red Dragon was furious that her innocent tickling prank had suddenly turned into a source of ambiguous and stupid rumors. The next morning came. Jay was calmly changing his clothes in his room when Baum walked in without warning. The girl immediately flushed with embarrassment, noticing that the young man was standing in front of her half-naked. Jay gave her his usual heavy look, without expressing any unnecessary emotion or anxiety. The Green Dragon immediately shot out the door, apologizing profusely for her clumsiness and sudden intrusion. After which the girl knocked politely, and the young man calmly allowed her to enter the room. Baum, smiling shyly, quietly asked if he could join her for a walk around the city. He asked why she suddenly started such a conversation, to which Baum noted that the guy constantly spends time with her sisters and hardly pays attention to her. Jay retorted that one of them was a walking disaster, and the other was so simple-minded that her loyalty could easily be bought with food. After this, he abruptly changed the subject, clearly not wanting to continue a pointless argument about the personal qualities of his charges. Soon, Yerem and Gale appeared, eating breakfast on the go, and were very surprised why Baum had not yet gotten ready for school. Baum calmly replied that she was going on a date with Mr. J, which instantly plunged poor Gale into a state of genuine and deep shock. Yerim quickly reassured her friend, explaining that Bomb was actually only referring to a business meeting as part of his guardian duties. Reassured by this simple explanation, Gail returned to her sandwich, but suddenly realized the real reason for Jay's presence. She suspected that the guy was simply playing favorites, but Jay strongly denied such accusations. The girl compared herself to her mother. Despite hundreds of people around her, she had only 2 favorites, and Bomb did not want to be among the abandoned ones. She continued to complain that the gentleman did not notice her, and compared herself to an abandoned fish in an empty aquarium. Bomb was being overly dramatic, declaring to the whole room that she was the only one in this house who was being so unfairly neglected. Seeing her friend's distress, the Golden Dragon immediately tried to cheer her up and distract her from her gloomy thoughts. Red assured the guy that she now understood the reason for his constant presence nearby, and promised not to cause trouble while he accompanied Bomb. The girl stated that Jay couldn't keep them under his supervision forever, and it was time for them to learn independence. After some thought, the guy agreed, and the Green Dragon secretly rejoiced, because she had been longing for this date from the very beginning. The action moves to the classroom, where Bomb was diligently studying with Jay, trying to concentrate as much as possible on her studies. The students immediately started whispering, recognizing her as the sister of that very scandalous Yerim. They enthusiastically discussed her incredibly high scores on the entrance exam and wondered what other talents the new girl possessed. This was followed by heated debate about her family's origins, but it quickly became clear that no one had any precise information. The teacher claps his hands joyfully and loudly announces to everyone present that today's social etiquette lesson is finally over. The teacher decided to spend the remaining time on partner dancing, which caused a wave of discontent among the students. She explained that when they become great superhumans, they will have to constantly attend social events. To look awkward in front of high society is an indelible disgrace and an absolute failure. The students quickly split into pairs, some timidly greeting their partners, while others blushed from the accidental touch of hands. One of the girls was surprised that Bomb was standing completely alone, because she expected to see a line of people wanting to get in. The young man noticed that the girl had a strange aura that made it difficult for ordinary people to even approach her. The teacher is genuinely worried about the girl, noticing that she is left without a partner. But the Green Dragon humbly replies that apparently she is simply not popular at all. Ultimately, the kind teacher decided to support the lonely girl and personally pair her up so she wouldn't feel left out. However, the Green Dragon politely asked if she could, as an exception, dance with her guardian, who was there and watching over her. Jay, watching from the side, was visibly taken aback by this sudden request, but the teacher was kind, and the girl, beaming with happiness, immediately ran to him. The situation made Jay tense, because he had not expected such a turn of events in a regular etiquette lesson. At this time, the Green Dragon joyfully ran up to the guy and extended her hand, inviting him into the dance circle. The guy honestly admitted that he didn't know how to dance at all and had never done it, which clearly made him uncomfortable. This upset the girl, and she asked reproachfully whether he would really leave her alone at such a crucial moment. The teacher loudly commanded all the students to take their partner's hands and smoothly begin to take their first steps to the rhythmic music. At that moment, Bomb felt Jay's hands trembling slightly, revealing his inner excitement and unusual shyness. She asked with a smile if he was really so nervous just because he was holding her hands in front of all the students. Bomb asked if the guy was really embarrassed to touch her, to which Jay visibly blushed, but quickly denied it. Then she confidently intertwined her fingers with his palms, trying to calm him down and show that there was nothing scary in this gesture. She noticed that a simple touch did not instantly connect their emotions, and the guy only silently agreed with this logical argument. Bomb concluded by jokingly reminding him not to shirk, otherwise it would reflect poorly on her etiquette grades. Jay silently accepted her terms, and they began their first dance, trying to match the general movements of the other couples swirling in the spacious room. From the outside, they looked like a truly harmonious couple, although Jay was extremely focused, afraid of making any wrong move and completely ruining the moment. Bomb, still smiling mysteriously, noticed that his palms had become completely damp with sweat, which revealed the extent of his extreme nervous tension. Suddenly, Bomb's imagination played a cruel joke on her, throwing up a daring image of a guy with a naked, muscular torso. At this thought, a hot blush instantly flooded her face, causing a wave of uncontrollable embarrassment. She lost her balance in surprise and almost fell, but Jay caught her in time, preventing her from being disgraced in front of the entire class. Both froze in amazement, and Bomb's nose suddenly started bleeding from a powerful rush of blood to his face. Jay looked at the girl in complete confusion, not understanding what secret thoughts had caused such a violent and strange reaction. While the guy was trying to understand the reason for what had happened, Bomb, deeply embarrassed, was frantically looking for a way to quickly hide her shame from his eyes. Sometime later, Bomb was sitting in the hallway, slowly coming to her senses and drinking cold juice to calm down a little after what happened in the dance hall. Jay insistently advised her to go to the hospital immediately, but she only waved him off, explaining that dragons did not need ordinary human hospitals at all. When he asked in bewilderment how she could have started bleeding if she hadn't hit anyone, Bomb simply couldn't find a truthful answer to give the guy. Bomb quickly changed the subject, praising Jay for his dance, which was much better than expected, and curiously asked where he learned to do it so well. This question suddenly reminded the guy of a girl from the past who once called him Captain and patiently taught him his very first dance moves. That mysterious mentor from his memories assured him that his innate skills were quite good even for a tough newbie. She insisted that with enough practice his movements could become flawless, worthy of any elite technique. Lost in these melancholy thoughts, Jay fell silent for a moment, after which he dryly replied that he had never taken professional dance lessons. Bomb immediately noticed his darkened gaze and tactfully decided not to ask any more questions so as not to disturb old wounds. The girl felt that behind his cold calm there was hidden a sad secret that he was not yet ready to share with others. Then she gently asked about his plans for the evening, and when the guy was free, suggested doing something really fun together. Bomb sincerely hoped that spending time together would help him take his mind off his dark thoughts and finally feel a taste for the simple life. The action moves to Moscow, to the secret center of the Invisibility Organization, where, to the sound of sirens, the corridors are littered with disfigured corpses. One of the demonic creatures tried to escape in panic, realizing that even with their combined forces they would not be able to defeat the approaching monster. This chilling horror paralyzed the will of the survivors when they realized that their base had turned into a death trap from which there was no escape. The mutant turns around abruptly and begins to curse loudly, not understanding where this monster, whose power exceeds all imagination, came from. Having knocked down the armored doors, he continues his desperate run, hoping to get out and immediately contact his superiors. As the fugitive reached the turn, a double of Jay suddenly appeared in front of him, blocking his path and emitting a frightening energy. Shadow asks where the mutant is rushing off to in such a hurry, and the creature, trembling with terror, asks the clone in response what exactly he needs in this forgotten place. To this, the Shadow calmly replies that his great lord is looking for something important here, and he will stop at nothing until the task is completed. The ghost demanded that the location of the transcendental demon be revealed immediately, so that this protracted bloody search could finally be put to an end. Shadow told the mutant that he'd better tell her nicely where the X-Class commander was hiding, otherwise his last moments would become endless torture. The ghost claimed that he had destroyed similar creatures and knew their true nature, and when the monster refused to speak, the clone squeezed its throat and lifted it off the floor. When the pain becomes unbearable, the mutants begin to thrash about like puppets with their strings cut. Suddenly, the clone asks the monster if he would like to dance under the moonlight one last time before he dies. The creature's breathing becomes increasingly heavy, tears begin to stream from its eyes, and the clone continues to hold the monster by the chin. A moment later, a terrible cry is heard from a monster gripped by death throes and torments. A powerful field of dark energy flares up around the clone as it attempts to establish a mental connection with its master. Transmitting a signal, the clone reports to Jay that the Type X has already been used and sent to stealth headquarters. He also reports that, unlike all previous regressions, in this time loop, the X prototype unexpectedly turned out to be a female, which changed things considerably. Upon hearing this, Jay immediately asked the clone for all the details he knew about the chief researcher, trying to get a complete picture of what was happening. During questioning, he finally confirmed that the main target of the operation was a woman named Vera, whose role turned out to be key. He then ordered the clone to take on the guise of Vera and secretly infiltrate the Stealth Force headquarters to finally establish the identity of the X prototype. This transcendental demon is known to possess the rare ability to link together the minds of countless others like itself, turning them into a single instrument of will. The longer this commander remains alive, the more followers he brings under his influence, gradually growing into a threat to the world. With each cycle, his power only grows stronger, and the network of mental connections becomes denser, making direct combat a suicidal risk. This is why, in every regression, Jay made the immediate destruction of Prototype X a priority. He understood that any delay would allow the enemy to gather a critical mass of supporters and become invulnerable. However, this time the key data was distorted, completely destroying the usual strategy. This discrepancy has turned the search into a death trap, where any mistake leads to disaster. The great clock has detected a surge of malice beyond the horizon of providence, and has begun scanning for beings that have fallen out of the flow of time. X's change in personality was clearly the work of the dark force that the Guardian had warned about. Jay was determined that anyone who dared to disturb his peace would inevitably be destroyed. At that moment, Bomb called him. The guy was surprised to see her in the fitting room, not expecting such a turn of events at all. She appeared before him in a bikini, and coquettishly asked what she looked like, causing Jay to blush and quickly turn away. The Green Dragon explained her choice with the approaching summer, and, without the slightest embarrassment, invited him to come closer. According to her, he should have taken a closer look at the outfit since he was a spectator at this demonstration. A confused Jay carefully asked if this was all just another stupid joke. However, Bomb stubbornly insisted on her own, making it clear that she was extremely serious. She jokingly asked if he was having indecent thoughts, prompting the guy to sternly warn her against provocations. As she left, Green Dragon continued to tease Jay, laughing and asking if he really didn't want to look at her longer. He vehemently denied it, but Bomb continued to tease him, jokingly wondering if she should have bought that revealing swimsuit after all. Jay insisted on returning home immediately, but Bomb admitted that she had actually come to the mall to buy gifts for the girls. She explained that Ghoul's favorite teddy bear was completely worn out, so she decided to buy a new one and other gifts for the other dragons. Jay asked what exactly she had prepared for the others. Bomb explained that Gale really appreciates stylish clothes and wardrobe accessories. As for Yareem, Bomb asked her about her wishes in advance, although such a display of concern itself seemed a little unusual to her. Bomb ended up going off to look for gifts for Gale and Yareem, leaving the most important task to Jay, choosing a present for little Ghoul. Jay silently headed in the other direction, without turning around and demonstrating complete determination to act without further words or prompting from the Green Dragon. The Green Dragon, meanwhile, thought that he would surely cope with this task on his own, as he had done many times before. The action moves to a toy store, where the manager is bored behind the counter due to a lack of customers. Seeing the guy's height and build, she decided that he was either a professional model or a soldier who had accidentally dropped into the store. Despite his stern and aloof appearance, the girl quickly decided that he had no understanding whatsoever of children's toys and would easily fall for the salesman's tricks. In her eyes, he immediately became a convenient and naive victim, ready to spend a large sum without a second thought, which she was frankly happy about. Approaching him, the employee politely asked the child's age. Jay briefly replied that the little one was 4 years old. The girl called it a wonderful age and suggested that he was looking for a gift for his daughter, but Jay immediately explained that this was not the case. The administrator added coquettishly that it's rare these days to meet an uncle who personally and with such diligence chooses toys for his niece. She jokingly checked the boy's heartbeat with a toy stethoscope and advised him to use an educational playset instead of regular dolls. The girl suggested buying a little doctor set, noting that playing together would help them become much closer. She also mentioned a 10% discount on themed sets, which finally convinced the serious buyer to make a choice. Jay briefly imagined Ghoul in a nurse's outfit and confirmed that he would follow the advice as he took the box from the shelf. The administrator was delighted to realize that she had hit a real jackpot in the person of such an incredibly generous and wealthy buyer. Jay bought a lot of gifts, and the girl kindly noted that such variety would be extremely beneficial for the child's emotional development. When she inquired about a possible payment method for the purchase, the young man, without any unnecessary emotion or comment, casually handed her a black card. This card was intended exclusively for members of the country's privileged VIP families, and immediately revealed one's true social status. The employee was amazed by his status and charm, and even seriously considered trying to seduce this enviable, handsome man. However, as soon as she asked if he had a girlfriend, the Green Dragon suddenly appeared, and taking Jay's hand in an authoritative manner, immediately interrupted their conversation. This gesture was far more eloquent than any words, and made it clear that further dialogue was inappropriate here. Seeing the green school uniform, the administrator assumed that she was his younger sister, which only earned the girl an icy and extremely displeased look. The Green Dragon immediately stated that Ghoul would not appreciate the medical kits that Jay had chosen for her. The administrator tried to dissuade the young men, but the girl, smiling, once again reminded them that the little girl didn't like it. They were about to leave when Bomb looked back, noticing something. The girl chose a teddy bear that looked as much like the baby's old toy as possible. She says that it looks like the first teddy bear, and the girl won't get confused. Jay calmly noted that he himself was going to buy this very toy. A joyful smile appears on the Green Dragon's face. She reminds the administrator of her offer of the maximum discount. It's late evening and the city streets are starting to get noticeably dark. The girls were absolutely delighted with the gifts, and the golden dragon looked especially happy. The little girl, unlike them, looked surprised and carefully examined the new bear. The golden dragon happily announces that she was just thinking of buying a new wallet, and thanks the gentleman for the gift. The baby was given a bear, and Golden wants to know what the red dragon was given. Yerim smiles happily. She shows the leather whip and tells the girl that these are toys for adults. After which the girl shows the handcuffs, calls the golden dragon a little monkey, and demands that he come to her, as she wants to try something. Green observes a touching moment as the little girl gently touches the boy's forehead, expressing her deep affection and gratitude. After that, the girl handed Jay the box and said that it was a gift for him. Green Dragon gave Jay a stylish tie after noticing that he always wore the same one. The guy gratefully accepted the gift. The girl declares that when she works and earns more, she will buy him a new suit. The guy reminded the girl that she shouldn't forget to treat herself, after which the Green Dragon smiled slyly and said that she bought herself something. Jay asks the girl what she bought, to which she smiles shyly. Green bought that very expensive underwear and tells the guy that she will show him the gift later. Several weeks pass. The guardian quietly knocks on the door, opens it, and enters his master's office. Jay informs him that he is going away for a few weeks and is going to give him important tasks to do during his absence. He instructs the guardian to look after the baby for the next 3 days, after which the guy turns around and says there's something else. Jay says he's taking Yerim with him on this trip. The action moves to the portal, near which a huge crowd of people has already gathered. One of the guys excitedly announces the start of the long-awaited demon battle simulation. The simulation is a brutal endurance test designed for total immersion and maximum combat. For 3 days, students must survive inside a virtual dungeon filled with traps, monsters, and constantly changing conditions. They will not fight alone, but in teams, where everyone is obliged to fulfill their role and support others at any cost. Each group is assigned a guardian who guides the students, monitors the progress of the test, and evaluates their performance under extreme conditions. The guardian is called an operator, a term that comes from the practice of groups of superhumans who specialized in raids against monsters. The mentor now performs the same functions as the raid group operator of the past. In the crowd, Jay stands next to the red dragon, who watches the trembling students with obvious disdain and doubts their combat experience. Jay reminds the girl that she shouldn't relax so much, because this is not a solo raid, and to complete the simulation, they need to unite in teams of 3 people. The red dragon agrees, but states that this only makes sense if she has worthy companions, which she doesn't see at all among this crowd. Before she can continue, a guy approaches them and politely invites her to join their group, as they notice that she is still alone. The red dragon furiously orders them to get lost, calling them pathetic losers who are not worthy of being in the same virtual space with her. Jay calmly asks their names. The guy introduces himself as Hockey, and the girl calls herself Kim, promising to work hard and not interfere with the team. The red dragon flared up with rage again, loudly accusing both newcomers of weakness and complete unsuitability for such a dangerous test. Jay, ignoring her anger, calmly accepted them into his group to go through the simulation. The girl indignantly demanded to know who gave him the right to decide who would make up her party, but Jay calmly suggested that in that case she should find her own team. The red dragon only grumbles in response, realizing that any unnecessary searching would now turn into a big headache. Hockey and Kim look at them in complete confusion. She ultimately orders the pair to obey her without question, warning that any obstacles in their path during the battle will deprive them of any chance of escaping alive. Hockey, despite her rude tone, bows gratefully, but suddenly someone hits the guy hard on the back of the head with great force. The newcomer furiously scolds Hockey and Kim for getting in the way again, reminding them of his threat to kill them for such insolence. Hockey apologizes, but the guy switches to Kim and rudely demands words of repentance from her. The girl remains silent, and the enraged guy asks why she is hesitating, since her boyfriend has already apologized. He leans over to the girl and grabs her by the hair, after which he once again demands an immediate apology. The girl gives the young man a stern look, and her determined expression shows that she does not intend to follow the lead of this bully. The bully's partners laugh loudly and advise him not to overdo it, as the escorts are very close. The bully brushes them off, saying that adults don't care about orphans, and roughly grabs the girl by the bangs. Hearing this, the red dragon wonders what he meant by the word orphan. The bully instantly recognizes her as Yerim, the same crazy student from the Blue Dragon School. He doesn't show it, but internally he panics as the red dragon repeats his question. The guy recalls that even his elders advised him never to get involved with this crazy woman. The bully explains in detail that these orphans are students without formal guardians. He points to the young guys and declares that they are poor trash without any connections. After this, the Red Dragon begins to grumble with annoyance that she has to be on a team with these paupers. The guy is very surprised why such a strong warrior would team up with such idiots. He offers her a place in his group, promising to kick out any member for her. The hooligan sincerely hopes that his proximity to the Red Dragon will bring him enormous benefits in the future. He believes that their characters are similar, and therefore the guy will be able to easily manipulate her cruelty to his advantage. His thoughts are rudely interrupted by a sudden blow. The Red Dragon hits the guy right in the face. Everyone present freezes in shock, and the aggressor himself is speechless from such impudence. The guy calls the Red Dragon a painted idiot out loud, and cheekily asks if she is really tired of living. The girl asks in an icy tone who allowed him to put his dirty paw on her shoulder without any permission. She warns that they are not friends at all, because a scumbag like him is on a completely different level. Yerim loudly warns that if she sees him nearby again, the guy will immediately die a painful death. The atmosphere becomes tense as the young people watch the Red Dragon's reaction in amazement. Jay watches what is happening closely, but does not intervene yet, and only sighs heavily and resignedly. Meanwhile, the portal activates. The professor, and the specialist in demonic entities, announces that he will now announce the rules of the test. All participants will be divided into 50 teams, and will begin their tests at different points in the virtual space simultaneously. Points for activity, kills, deaths, and damage dealt will be converted into points for the team's final score. And everything that happens will be broadcast in real time in the form of a rating table. In case of virtual death, the student is reborn after 3 hours in a different location. The dungeon itself has the ominous name of Ant's Nest. The professor wishes everyone good luck, and then, one by one, the teams enter the shimmering portal to begin this grueling test of strength. The Red Dragon notices that for a virtual world this place looks quite nice, and with predatory excitement promises to smash everything here to pieces. Kim asks her if she even knows where the other squads are, to which Yerim nonchalantly replies that they will definitely collide if they just run in circles. The girl explains that she and Hockey do not have such phenomenal speed and endurance. She states that this rash move could lead them straight into an ambush, but the Red Dragon only sarcastically asks if she really thinks of boasting about her weakness. The girl makes excuses, trying to clarify the strategy, but Red unceremoniously taps her on the head with his finger, declaring that there is only one plan: to obediently follow her and cover her back. Kim insistently reminds them that this is a team battle, not a solo game, and asks them not to act alone, at which point Jay asks the Red Dragon if she has set a worthy target for herself. The Red Dragon is genuinely surprised, to which the guy clarifies which team exactly she is eager to overtake in the rankings. Kim explains that triumph will not be easy, as each group has an experienced operator who is able to masterfully conceal their vulnerable blind spots. Yerim calls his partner an unbearably negative person and snaps that she doesn't need specific targets, as she intends to wipe out absolutely everyone in her path. Meanwhile, the bully suffers from the pain of a broken nose, and his partners taunt him, reminding him that this is a well-deserved punishment for trying to act tough. The guy furiously justifies himself, declaring that he only wanted to establish useful connections and did not expect such an outburst of anger from the girl. His partner suspiciously asks if he was seriously planning to replace one of them. The bully declares that he never intended to do this, and was only testing the Red Dragon's reaction, after which he assures that if he meets the girl, he will tear her to pieces for her insolence. He is completely unaware that the Red Dragon is behind him, and at the same moment the girl asks again if this worthless weakling really intends to tear her to pieces. The bully falls into an indescribable primal terror, realizing that the situation has gotten out of control, and he no longer has a way to retreat. At that very moment, Yerim, with a drawn sword, makes a swift leap towards him, offering to immediately prove his words with action, and not empty chatter. The Red Dragon delivers a lightning-fast and truly devastating kick, putting all its fury into the attack. The unexpectedness and cruelty of this attack made all the students present freeze in shock. The force of the blow is so monstrous that the guy is thrown to the side and slammed into the wall of the building with a crash. The operator is stunned by the sudden attack and loudly commands to prepare for battle, covering his wounded comrade from the furious girl. The hooligan's comrades panic and raise their machine guns and point them at the Red Dragon, preparing to open fire. The girl lands dramatically and declares that they have completely misunderstood the essence of this fight. This is not a battle of equals, but a one-sided hunt for pathetic and cowardly puppies. The enemy opens up a barrage of fire from a machine gun, but the red dragon deftly dodges all the bullets. The enemy screams in horror and demands not to approach him, but the red dragon quickly closes the distance. A second later, the girl finds herself close to the guy and raises her sword for a crushing blow. The space is filled with a bright red glow, and a system notification informs that the enemy's vital signs have reached 0. Yerim turns around sharply and throws a look full of malice to the side. The bully leaps into the air with a scream, trying to bring the heavy blade down on the red dragon. The steel collides, causing a blinding flash of light. The impudent man calls the girl an idiot because she did not dodge a frontal attack. Standing on high ground with heavy weapons, the boy is sure that the red dragon is doomed to defeat, despite all its power. However, the girl easily repels the onslaught and asks the bully if he seriously hoped to surpass her in strength. After delivering a devastating series of blows, the red dragon receives a message that the enemy's life is 0. Yerim sighs heavily and thinks with obvious disappointment about the end of the fight, although it hasn't even had time to warm up yet. A teammate on her team shouts loudly for the girl not to relax, as there is still one living enemy left on the battlefield. Yerim looks into the dark corner of the cave and sees the third member of the enemy team trying to crawl away, trembling with fear. The young man asks not to hit him in the face, and at the same moment receives a powerful blow from the red dragon. The enemy team's operator gasps in surprise and realizes that things are bad for them. Haki praises the girl and says that it was amazing because she beat everyone single-handedly. Kim didn't know the red dragon was so powerful and thinks it's no wonder she's so famous. However, what she admires most is the red dragon's companion. The escort can't use mana in training simulations, so Jay orders them to find another team as quickly as possible. Kim continues to admire Jay's skills as he timed the red dragon's ambush perfectly. The girl thinks that the guy has incredible tracking skills and is excellent at giving orders. All members of team number 37 are presumed dead and will return to another location in 3 hours. Jay glances at his defeated opponents and thinks that these guys shouldn't have gone out there and fought, as they had no chance at all. Suddenly he notices a very loud and clear voice of Haki, which is heard very close by. The guy activates a holographic screen with statistics and loudly announces that they have only beaten one team and are already in 6th place. He doubts that many teams have already entered the battle, since the simulation has only just started. The red dragon successfully eliminated the enemy team's leader without taking any damage, so Haki begins to praise the girl, showering her with compliments. Suddenly, the red dragon turns around and roughly grabs Haki by the face. She screams loudly and asks what he is happy about, since he did nothing and only watched the battle from afar. The girl asks loudly once again what he did while she was fighting, because she was expecting quality snipers to work, not useless ballast. She scolds the young men, saying that they could have at least shot at the enemies while she was fighting, but they stood aside and watched like idols. After which Yerim calms down and states that there is no need to be happy about only 6th place. The red dragon declares that her team will be first at any cost and asks the young people if they understand the goal. Jay closely observes the red dragon's leadership qualities and her ability to motivate those around her. Meanwhile, in the lair, the guardian tries to entertain the baby with stories, but she ignores him, missing Jay. 2 days flew by from the start of the simulation, and time flew by quickly for the test participants. In a massive control room, multiple operators monitor every action inside the simulated dungeon in real time. The professor in charge of fighting the demonic people wearily asks if today is really the last day of the student test. The man asks the operator for the news. The assistant replies that team number 1 is in the lead, but team number 50 is almost on par with them in points. The first team is made up of second-year students, so the professor asks to be reminded who exactly is on team number 50, which is so actively pursuing the leaders. The assistant replies that team number 50 includes the Red Dragon, the very girl the whole school is talking about. He reports that this is the same reckless person, and through the screen he breaks through the current position of the Red Dragon on the dungeon map. He reports that, in addition to the Red Dragon, the group has 2 snipers who reliably cover the rear. The man is genuinely perplexed as to how they managed to become leaders and attributes this success to the skill of the cameraman. Then the assistant informs the professor that these are not all the surprises of this group. He brings up a new hologram and states that the route the Red Dragon and her squad are taking is insane in terms of complexity and risk. Judging by his professional performance on the battlefield, the Red Dragon operator clearly worked for the Alliance before. The professor himself was a former top operator in the Alliance and knows all the pros, but he had never heard of Jay before. The man begins to think about the Red Dragon, who constantly breaks the school rules and causes problems for everyone. He also remembers her little sister, because Bomb, the magic professor, is considered the genius of all time. Moreover, these young ladies are under the close control of this man, which raises additional questions for the professor. The professor concludes that Jay's past is very dark, as if he was deliberately erased from all records and databases of the Alliance. His assistant interrupts his thoughts by telling him that something else is bothering him, something related to the teams at the top of the rankings. He points to the huge screen and informs the professor that Team 1 is making some marks on the walls of the dungeon as they move. Their route never crossed with the route of the teams in 3rd and 4th place, as if they were using these signs to tell each other something. The assistant states that such communication without the use of external means of communication that can be controlled should be regarded not as a tactic, but as cheating and deception of the system. After hearing this, the professor tells the man that his observation is commendable, and that he was right to notice this oddity in the team's behavior. Indeed, he finds it strange that these teams do not fight each other when there is an opportunity and a point advantage to do so. The Red Dragon curses harshly before delivering a powerful blow to the huge stone wall, expressing his displeasure with the situation. The girl is very irritated and screams loudly. They keep gaining and gaining points and have never been destroyed by enemies. She turns to her comrades and angrily asks why they are still in 2nd place in the rankings and not in 1st place. Kim suddenly asks the girl if she can't just be happy with 2nd place and not risk everything for 1st. She says that the Red Dragon is perfectly fine, but they are already very tired and have exhausted their strength over these days. They have little time left, and if they continue to torture themselves like this, they may end up losing all their points and falling out of the rankings. The girl suggests playing it safe just in case, but doesn't have time to finish her sentence, as the Red Dragon instantly appears in front of her. Suddenly, Yerim calms down and tells the girl that she understands everything. These guys have become a little better and did an excellent job during the test. Kim addresses the Red Dragon by name and tries to once again express his thoughts about the need for rest for the team. However, the Red Dragon begins to shake the girl violently and loudly declares that this is all because they are losers, not ready to fight to the end. Jay carefully studies the massive stone wall blocking the way. He remains outwardly calm, but closely watches the tense scene between the girls and their conflict. The Red Dragon angrily declares that young people give up after barely putting in any effort, like the most pathetic losers. The girl recalls that on the first day, the orphans told her that they would not hold her back and would cope with any difficulties. Therefore, she demands that we immediately pull ourselves together, get up and continue to fight no matter what. Yerim loudly orders them to stop living like losers and calls the young people idiots. Hockey gets to his feet and starts shouting loudly that they will definitely take 1st place. Watching his partner's excited cries, a satisfied smile appears on the Red Dragon's face. She turns her attention to Jay, who is standing silently to the side. The guy says that since she has finished her speech, she should come up to him. He points to a strange mark on the stone wall and asks the girl if she finds it suspicious. The Red Dragon claims that this is how opponents communicate with each other, and she has noticed similar symbols in other places as well. Hockey says he heard about it, and says that high school students form alliances and avoid meeting each other. The guy says that it is most likely their doing, but Kim takes a more cautious stance and says that this is just a guess. She sarcastically calls the Red Dragon professor and asks what the girl has to say about it. Yerim thinks for a moment, then happily announces that she has a great idea. A wicked grin suddenly appears on her face as the Red Dragon tells her comrades that she knows a way to deceive her opponents.